Chapter 836. The next day, after breakfast in the morning, Ching Chun should have gone to cultivate, and Big Yellow continued to fish. Han Fei thought that he would go to Yi Qingfeng's house for tea in the afternoon, so he didn't bother him in the morning. When Han Fei arrived at Wang Dashuai's house, he found that Wang Dashuai carried a big squid back, and said that he was going to make a hot pot. Han Fei silently sympathized with him for 3 seconds and then said, "Senior brother, I have something to ask you." Wang Dashuai smiled innocently. "Little junior brother, just ask me." Han Fei said, "Senior brother, is the big turtle at the bottom of the lake making a breakthrough?" Before Wang Dashuai spoke, Bai Lu, who was busy, suddenly said, "Little junior brother, have you seen the old turtle?" Han Fei nodded slightly. "Yesterday, when I was fishing with Big Yellow, it sent me a voice transmission." Bai Lu's expression gradually became serious. "Did he want to make a deal with you?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes." Wang Dashuai also put down the big green door and sat down with Bai Lu at the table. The two of them looked at each other, which made Han Fei feel a little puzzled. Bai Lu said, "Little junior brother, to tell you the truth, that old turtle is indeed trying to make a breakthrough. Now it is equivalent to half an explorer. According to the classification of sea demons, it is a peak-level sea spirit, half a step into the Tao-seeking state." Han Fei took a breath. "A breakthrough is imminent?" Bai Lu nodded. "Yes, although this old turtle is not bad. Once it makes a breakthrough, there are only a few people on the Scattered Stars Island who can suppress it." Wang Dashuai added, "Little junior brother, once it becomes an explorer, it needs to go through a heavenly tribulation and a huge amount of spiritual energy. Once this old turtle makes a breakthrough, it will inevitably cause the spiritual energy in the Scattered Stars City to be suddenly depleted. Do you think the sea demons will take this opportunity to attack us?" Han Fei said in surprise, "Can't it just go to the outer sea to make a breakthrough? Besides, aren't there explorers on the Scattered Stars Island? Can't they kill it?" Bai Lu shook her head slightly. "Little junior brother, you underestimate the price of an explorer-level powerhouse. Once a powerhouse of that level takes action, half of the Scattered Stars Island can be destroyed. Moreover, the old tortoise was extraordinary. Its defense was extremely strong. If they really fought with it, the Scattered Stars Island would collapse. Even if the Scattered Stars Island doesn't collapse, what about the humans on the Scattered Stars Island?" Han Fei swallowed. Was an explorer really that strong? However, thinking about it, it made sense. Back then, when Chun Huangdian moved the 800-kilometer Sea Demon Mountain, his power was beyond imagination. Han Fei was in a trance. "But why doesn't the old turtle come out?" Bai Lu sighed. "How is it not wanting to come out? If it could come out, it would have done so long ago. It had actually been sealed under the Empyrean waterfall countless years ago. It could be said that the Empyrean waterfall was the old turtle, and the old turtle was the Empyrean waterfall. It's suppressed." Han Fei exclaimed, "Was it pressed down?" Wang Dashuai raised his head and looked at the high Empyrean waterfall. "You didn't expect this, did you? Once the old turtle was free, the Empyrean waterfall would definitely collapse. If the waterfall collapsed, so be it. They could just move it away. But if it makes a breakthrough on the Scattered Stars Island, human beings will have to evacuate. Otherwise, the Scattered Stars Island will be in danger when the heavenly tribulation strikes and sea demons invade." Han Fei finally understood why the old turtle wanted to exchange demonic stones with him. It wanted to break the seal by force. Han Fei thought for a moment. "Is there no other way?" Bai Lu smiled. "I'm trying. By logic, it will take the old turtle at least 20 years to make a breakthrough. The Scattered Stars Island arranged for us to live here in order to slowly nibble away the power of the seal around the Empyrean waterfall. Do you know why Little Nine has the law enforcer seal? By logic, a law enforcer shouldn't get such a strong and weird law, but Little Nine does." Han Fei asked in surprise, "The Empyrean waterfall?" Joeen Ling controls the power to seal the big turtle? Wang Dashui slightly shook his head. Not exactly, but definitely. As long as one person in the Empyrean waterfall becomes a law enforcer, the power of the seal will be weakened. In the end, the big turtle can even break the seal on its own. This is also what the humans have discussed with the big turtle. You can say that they have reached a peace agreement. Han Fei nodded deeply. Bai Lu suddenly said, "Little junior brother, did you exchange something with the old turtle?" Han Fei couldn't help but feel a little guilty. What if I exchange something a little? Would it cause the big turtle to make an early breakthrough? Bai Lu and Wang Dashui looked at each other in bewilderment and then looked at Han Fei in shock. Did you really exchange? Han Fei smiled awkwardly. Just a little. It shouldn't be much for the big turtle at the peak level of the sea spirit realm. Bai Lu immediately rolled her eyes and said, "You're really from the Thug Academy. The first thing you did when you arrived at the Empyrean waterfall was to exchange something with the big turtle." Han Fei was stunned. So, I'm not the first person to exchange something with the big turtle? Wang Dashui smiled awkwardly, and Bai Lu said helplessly, "Your senior brother Chu Linyuan and senior sister Mu Qingchuan secretly exchanged a lot of things with the big turtle on the first day they came here. This directly led to the big turtle's breakthrough being brought forward by 10 years. Because of this and another thing, your senior brother and senior sister haven't dared to come back until now." Han Fei guessed that the other mission was to dig into the Hengduan mountain range. However, he still took a deep breath. So fast? This directly brought forward the big turtle's breakthrough? Han Fei looked at Wang Dashui, only to see this senior brother chuckle. "I didn't have many things, so I only exchanged for 30,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, and then I was discovered." Han Fei asked in surprise, "Senior brother, is that why you were locked in the Empyrean waterfall and forbidden from going to sea?" Bai Lu snorted. "How can it be so simple? Your senior brother exchanged with the big turtle when he had nothing on him, so he went to cheat the big turtle of an undersea chimney. That's the result now." Han Fei suddenly remembered that Jiang Qin had told him about this. He couldn't help but look at Wang Dashui and ask, "Senior brother, how much spirit awakening fluid is there in the undersea chimney?" Wang Dashui smiled and scratched his head. "I only grabbed more than 500,000 caddies. There's still a lot left." Han Fei was speechless. More than 500,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid? How many points would that cost? Senior brother is really a tough guy. But fortunately, he only exchanged 5,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid from the big turtle. That shouldn't be too much, right? Bai Lu couldn't help but ask curiously, "Junior brother, what did you exchange with the big turtle?" Han Fei said slowly, "I exchanged with demonic stones. Was I cheated?" Bai Lu glanced at Han Fei in surprise. "Junior brother, you didn't absorb it yourself, did you?" Han Fei shook his head. "I dare not absorb it either. I've always absorbed very pure spiritual energy. The spiritual energy and demonic qi in the demonic stones were too mixed and violent and not suitable for absorption at all. Of course, he wouldn't absorb it." Wang Dashui patted Han Fei on the shoulder and said, "Then exchange with it, provided that the amount cannot exceed 50,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid." Han Fei rolled his eyes. "If I could exchange for 50,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, I would have exchanged at least 30,000 caddies with it last night." Han Fei ate a bowl of white rice in Wang Dashui's house. Finally, Bai Lu gave him another bowl of rice. Han Fei left their house as if he were fleeing. In the afternoon, Han Fei simply sat in Yi Qingfeng's house and didn't leave. Although this old man never smiled much, Han Fei felt that he was not a bad person. Because Han Fei arrived early, the old poison specially made tea in advance. Then, holding a big centipede in his arms, he chatted with Han Fei. Yi Qingfeng asked, "Han Fei, are you interested in learning poison? Since you have the heaven spirit detoxifying insect, It's suitable for you to practice poison. Han Fei glanced at the big centipede in his arms and couldn't help but feel a little scared. In the future, if he were to come into contact with these creatures every day, whether he opened or closed his eyes, all he would see was these things. Then he might as well die. Han Fei quickly waved his hand and said, forget it, forget it. Neither alchemy nor poison is suitable for me. I think I'd better cultivate normally. I want to refine my physique to the strongest. Yi Qingfeng glanced at Han Fei lightly. Then you can try fighting Qing Chen in the future. That kid is also a body cultivator. Although he freeloads everywhere, in fact, body cultivators always need a lot of food and enough energy. In terms of energy consumption, Body Refining School consumes even more energy than refiners and alchemists. They always need a lot of energy to consume. Han Fei couldn't help but think of Qing Chen's dirty appearance every day. Although he could feel it, Han Fei still felt that he had lost some weight. After a while, the tea was ready, and Yi Qingfeng said, the poison I used today is relatively light. But mixed together, it tastes good. Anyway, it won't kill you. You can drink 3 cups. Hearing that he could drink 3 cups, Han Fei quickly grabbed a cup of tea and poured it down. In his dantian, the heaven spirit detoxifying insect wolfed down the tea again. About 10 minutes later, the heaven spirit detoxifying insect flashed with golden light and upgraded. Han Fei couldn't help taking a breath. As expected of the old poison, he was proficient in all kinds of strange poisons. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Senior, do you have any books on poisonous insects and poisonous herbs? Yi Qingfeng was slightly surprised. Have you thought it through? Han Fei shook his head. No. I'll see them in the future and recognize them. I can help you catch some too. In fact, how could Yi Qingfeng not know what Han Fei was thinking? Yi Qingfeng. Chapter 837. At night, Han Fei snuck to the pool of the Empyrean waterfall. Han Fei said telepathically, Senior Turtle, I'm afraid the demonic stones I have are only enough for 4,000 caddies of spiritual spring. In the future, I will prepare to go out to sea to make a breakthrough. At that time, I'll think of a way to get you something good. The big turtle said leisurely, Good. Give it to me. Han Fei threw down a sea-swallowing seashell, which turned into spirit-awakening fluid when he picked it up. During this period, Han Fei vaguely felt that someone's perception was lingering on him. However, Wang Dashui also said that as long as the transaction did not exceed 50,000 caddies, it was fine. It meant that the Scattered Stars Island didn't supervise the Empyrean waterfall very strictly. There was even a certain degree of encouragement in it. Of course, it was also possible that he was being lenient. After all, he had made so many contributions. However, Han Fei was rather suspicious. If he gave the big turtle too many things, wouldn't the strength of the big turtle be overloaded? Perhaps the big turtle's strength was already at the right level. However, it lacked the opportunity to break through. So, no one was worried that it would break through immediately? However, Han Fei just grabbed the sea-swallowing seashell and went back. He planned to inform Luo Xiaobai and the others tomorrow and then go to the Wind Sky Canyon. At home, by the pool, Han Fei swallowed 800 caddies of spirit-awakening fluid in a row, and his upper limit of spiritual energy finally reached 29999. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. The consumption was less than he expected. There was still a little spirit-awakening fluid left, and Han Fei didn't intend to give it to the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and the others. As far as the amount of spirit-awakening fluid that he obtained now could be said to be completely unable to keep up with the consumption of the 3 legendary contractual creatures. If he wanted them to level up quickly, he would have to find another place similar to the ocean chimney and rob it. However, Han Fei felt that if he robbed the undersea chimney and didn't give it to the Scattered Stars Island, he would probably end up like Wang Dashui if he was exposed. However, this was all in the future. He had to find Luo Xiaobai tomorrow and learn more about the Wind Sky Canyon from her. The next morning, Han Fei walked out of the door and waved his hand. Clouds and mist shrouded the yard. He went to Yi Qingfeng's house and found a big spider to bite him. Then, Han Fei was about to fly away on the fishing boat. Suddenly, someone said telepathically, "Remember to choose a good time when you make a breakthrough." Standing on the roof, Ning Jingyao shouted, "Don't break through blindly. Try walking into the graveyard." Wu Ming's indifferent voice rang out, "Don't make do, and don't be casual." Yi said gently, "You can try many times, don't be anxious." Yu Shire said honestly, "Just catch the strongest one." Han Fei laughed. "Okay. Thank you all." Han Fei suddenly realized that the residents of the Empyrean waterfall were actually quite nice. Up until now, nothing had happened. Everything was so peaceful that Han Fei was surprised. Han Fei called Luo Xiaobai on the Sea God Square outside the central city, only to find that she was not there. On his way to the west side of the city, he found that Luo Xiaobai, Lu Renquang, and Zhang Xuanyu were coming toward him. The two sides actually met in the sky. Zhang Xuanyu instantly shouted, "Han Fei, this way, this way. We're going to the Empyrean waterfall." Lu Renquang shouted, "Do you know we're off today?" How could Han Fei know that they were off today? Luo Xiaobai didn't even have a day off now. Now that she had 6 stars, she didn't need to be assigned a job. Of course, Luo Xiaobai didn't choose to go to the sea alone, but chose to enter the central city to learn more information about the Scattered Stars Island, the 1,000-Star City, and the 10,000 Demon Valley. In this regard, Luo Xiaobai had always been prudent. Her choices had always been logical and purposeful. Han Fei could guess her purpose. The more he knew, the more knowledge he had, and the more secrets he knew, the faster and safer his cultivation would be. After a moment, in a club in the west side of the city, as soon as Han Fei came over, he was recognized by a group of people. Someone exclaimed, "Oh, Han Fei?" Someone shouted to Han Fei, "Han Fei, I heard that you helped someone become a law enforcer when you were at the Empyrean waterfall? Is that true?" Someone shouted, "Han Fei, I want to challenge you." As soon as this person said that, Zhang Xuanyu turned around and shouted, "Go away! No time, we're busy." In the club, Han Fei looked at Luo Xiaobai. "What should I pay attention to when I go to the Wind Sky Canyon?" Zhang Xuanyu asked in surprise. "Are you going to become a hidden fisher so soon?" Han Fei glanced at Zhang Xuanyu. "Am I fast?" Han Fei said in disdain, "Zhang Xuanyu, haven't you reached the peak for a while? Quang, you're too slow." Zhang Xuanyu chuckled. "My breakthrough will happen in a month. I'll be there when the time comes. I wonder when Quang will reach the peak." Lu Renquang mumbled, "I'm almost there. I'm just grinding my foundation bit by bit." After a brief silence, Luo Xiaobai said, "There are indeed a few things that you need to pay attention to." The Wind Sky Grand Canyon was a huge abyss. There were experts guarding the outer perimeter, but the inside of the canyon was an abyss. However, the weather there is terrible, and the desolation gales are blowing all the time. The deeper you go down, the stronger the desolation gales you'll encounter. The Wind Sky Wings, on the other hand, lived in the gales. If you feel that you're not strong enough, don't force yourself to go inside. Han Fei slightly frowned and asked, "Where's the graveyard?" Han Fei remembered that someone mentioned the graveyard in the Empyrean waterfall just now. Luo Xiaobai glanced at Han Fei casually. The graveyard is also known as the Desolation Graveyard. Apart from the Desolation Gales, there's also the Desolation Water. It's a place where you can easily die. It's located at the bottom of the entrance of the Wind Sky Canyon. However, it'll be more and more dangerous if you go forward from the graveyard. There are countless hero souls of the Wind Sky Wings there. Han Fei asked in surprise, "Hero souls? The Wind Sky Wings are protected by something?" Luo Xiaobai nodded. Logically speaking, they should be protected by something. However, nobody has ever reached the deepest part of the Desolation Graveyard. Also, don't kill the wind sky wings after you catch them. Otherwise, the other wind sky wings will be very vengeful and may attract more powerful wind sky wings. Han Fei was briefly stunned. Don't kill them? Then how do I take off the wings? Zhang Xuanyu said with a smile. You don't know that, do you? The wings of the wind sky wings are gone, but they can grow back. You just need to pick a wind pearl from its forehead and swallow it, and its wings will be yours. It's very simple. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder what kind of creature it was exactly. Why was it so weird? Han Fei nodded. Anything else? If not, we'll have lunch at noon and then I'll go there. I might go to the Sea of Pearls after I leave. Luo Xiaobai said, You'd better come back first. You can't go out until your cultivation is stabilized. As a hidden fisher, it's important to make every step steadily in order to become a law enforcer. Lu Renquang said in a hurry, I'm told that you can hunt as a team in the Wind Sky Canyon. Why don't we go there together? Zhang Xuanyu nodded. That's right. I'm told that we can also train there. If we go together, it's possible that we'll get good wings. However, Luo Xiaobai shook her head and said, You'd better not. The wind sky wings are timid and scared of crowds. Even if they cooperate, they will subconsciously avoid each other. Han Fei is strong enough, so you'd better go alone. Also, prepare some spiritual fruits to attract the powerful wind sky wings. Then, Luo Xiaobai looked at Han Fei. Let's see if we can find a wind god pearl in the desolation graveyard. Wind god pearl. Luo Xiaobai nodded. It's said that the desolation graveyard is named because countless wind sky wings tried to swallow the wind there and perished. Their heroic souls may give birth to wind god pearls, which are hard to come by. The last person to obtain a wind god pearl was more than 60 years ago, and he got a pair of fire wings. Han Fei nodded solemnly. Okay, got it. Han Fei flew north according to the map that Luo Xiaobai gave him. There weren't many people on his way, but the wind was getting stronger and stronger after flying for 30,000 kilometers. Han Fei found that many boats were floating on the sea. Hundreds of kilometers away, there was an enormous chasm in the middle of the violent cyclone, as if a hole had been opened on the surface of the sea. The seawater on both sides was sloping down, and there was nothing in the middle. CKMe, this is too unbelievable. The power of nature is truly marvelous. Han Fei found that the boat couldn't fly steadily anymore. When he landed on the surface of the sea and advanced 500 kilometers from the Wind Sky Canyon, several divine senses scanned him. Then Han Fei heard someone speaking telepathically, You have 6 stars. You can enter the desolation graveyard now. Then someone said telepathically, 6 stars. You can enter now. You can try the desolation graveyard. Then, they must be below level 50 if they have a wingspan of 3 meters. They must be below level 50 if they have a wingspan of less than 5 meters. They must be below level 50 if they have a wingspan of less than 5 meters. The bigger their wingspan is, the higher their level will be. Above 5 meters, every meter longer means 1 level higher. If you encounter a wind sky wing above level 54, you must consider retreating. Han Fei saw that someone was approaching him from a distance. The man's waist tag was 8 stars. It seemed that he was responsible for teaching here. A moment later, a middle-aged man approached and observed Han Fei. You don't look weak. You can consider hunting level 52 or level 53 wind sky wings. Han Fei was slightly surprised. Are the wind sky wings not good enough? Level 53 is equivalent to a junior peak level hidden fisher, isn't it? The man smiled. The wind sky wings are a special fish that grows by swallowing wind power. They're similar to the birds in the transverse mountain. However, they don't have claws or beaks. They only have 2 ways of attack. One is to cut their wings with sharp blades, and the other is to raise a destructive gale. As an excellent heavenly talent, he wouldn't be a heavenly talent if he couldn't deal with that. Before Han Fei said anything, the man said, Of course. You can also find someone to help you or cultivate inside. Anyway, I wish you good luck. Han Fei slightly nodded. Thank you for the information, Senior. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 838. The wind was roaring, and an enormous wind wall seemed to have fallen from the sky into the deep ocean. It reminded Han Fei of the abyssal chasm in the Level 3 fishery. That chasm also extended for tens of thousands of kilometers. At the very least, he couldn't have reached the end of it. He didn't even dare to enter the treasure trove that was right before his eyes. The wind wall of the Wind Sky Canyon was very similar to the wall of Sword Auras outside the abyssal chasm. The raging waves were rolling, and huge waves were stacked on top of each other, one wave after another. Under such circumstances, a normal ship would basically sink under a single wave. The wind and waves were so strong that it would not be an exaggeration to say that tsunamis were erupting all the time. The only difference from the abyssal chasm was that the wall of Sword Auras only appeared on the two sides of the chasm, while the wind wall of the Wind Sky Canyon filled the entire chasm and the periphery. The closer it was to the center, the crazier the storm would be. That was just the wind wall above the canyon. In fact, right where Han Fei was, he had been involved in a huge hurricane vortex. There were no clouds in the sky, or maybe the clouds in the sky had been rolled up by the hurricane and formed an enormous swirl. Stepping into the swirl, Han Fei felt that he would have been blown away if he hadn't stabilized himself with spiritual energy. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Such a degree of wind power could even be called a level 20 tornado. When Han Fei got a little closer, he occasionally saw something flying in the sky. Yes, in the sky, a blue fish with two pairs of white wings. One pair of wings was big, and the other was small. The big wing was on the head and abdomen, replacing the fins, and the small wing was on the tail. They were 1/3 the size of the big wing. There was also a fan-shaped feather on the tail. Heh! Even birds dare not be so long. How can a fish be so long? The Wind Sky wing in Han Fei's eyes was soaring in the wind. However, no one went to catch it, because its wingspan was only about 4 meters, less than 5 meters. Obviously, no one wanted to catch it. The boats couldn't move anymore when they were within 100 kilometers. Here, the water was surging, and Han Fei could only walk on the wave. Looking up at the sky, one could often see blue and white figures flashing through the hurricane. They were so fast that the Wind Sky wings were flying with the help of the wind. They knew how to ride the wind. With the naked eye, they could only see a white shadow flashing across the sky. As Han Fei walked forward step by step, he still didn't see anyone. Except for the wind wall that was incompatible with the gale, there seemed to be no other creatures here. Even though he was at the bottom of the sea, he didn't sense any fishes or shrimp. There wasn't even a clam, let alone seaweed. At the bottom of the sea, there were large pieces of reef, and mud was rarely seen. Just when Han Fei was only 30 kilometers away from the huge canyon crack, a white shadow flew out of the crack in an instant, followed by a figure. Han Fei realized that someone had hooked the Wind Sky wing with a fishing pole and flown it to the clouds together. The figure of a man and a fish rapidly rose into the sky. Their speed was so fast that it was astounding. This was the effect of natural wind. He was not in a hurry to enter the canyon. He raised his head, only to find that the face of the man in the sky had been deformed. He was retracting his fishing pole and trying to approach the Wind Sky wing. To avoid being caught by the man, the Wind Sky wing simply flew to the edge of the center of the eye. Han Fei could see that a layer of frost quickly condensed on the human, and the frost covered his body at a visible speed. Therefore, Han Fei could tell that the temperature at the periphery of the eye was extremely low. There was no telling how many degrees below zero it was. However, Han Fei didn't think that the frost could stop a hidden fisher. He felt that it was only a matter of time before the Wind Sky wing was caught. However, when Han Fei thought that the man was about to succeed, The battle suit on his body suddenly began to fall apart. Then, blood seemed to be spurting out. Huh? It's been torn apart? How is it possible? Han Fei was rather shocked. How could the ultra-quality battle suit be torn apart by the power of wind or frost? Desolation gale? Han Fei's eyes slightly constricted. Yes, the pure wind couldn't be so terrifying, but the desolation gale could. The wind sky wing was a wind-eating fish. It could swallow the desolation gale, but human beings couldn't. The hidden fisher quickly let go of his fishing pole. He was swept away by the wind and quickly left the area of the desolation gale. He didn't stabilize himself until he flew dozens of kilometers away and slowly landed. A moment later, when Han Fei saw the man at the entrance of the canyon again, he was pale and covered in countless bloody wounds. He smiled at Han Fei. "Sorry about that." Han Fei slightly nodded. "You chose a wind sky wing with a wingspan of 7 meters. You can consider a 6-meter one." The man slightly shook his head. "No, both hidden fishers and law enforcers need wings, and the stronger the wind sky wing, the better." Han Fei smiled. "Good luck." After that, the two of them stopped talking and walked into the canyon together. The moment Han Fei stepped into the wind sky canyon, he discovered that a strange gust of wind was blowing in the canyon. The cold and gloomy wind fell on his body like a wind knife. Although he only sensed the lethality, Han Fei felt that it was as powerful as when he just became a hanging fisher. The man jumped down without hesitation, as if he didn't care about the feeble desolation gale at all. Han Fei was quite curious too. He jumped down and easily broke the feeble desolation gales with the vibration of spiritual energy. After he fell 1,000 meters, Han Fei found that the desolation gale was almost powerful enough to tear apart a junior hanging fisher again. After he fell 3,000 meters, Han Fei felt that the desolation gale could even tear apart an intermediate hanging fisher easily. After he fell 4,000 meters, Han Fei found that the desolation gale could already tear apart an advanced hanging fisher. He was already at the bottom of the ocean, where many people were sitting cross-legged. There was no water here, only wind. Their clothes were fluttering in the wind. Most of them were wearing battle suits, because the desolation gale could easily tear regular clothes into pieces. Looking at the people sitting cross-legged every few hundred meters in the enormous canyon, Han Fei couldn't help but shake his head with a smile. It seemed that this place wasn't the desolation graveyard. There are at least 500 people here. Some are still peak-level hanging fishers, and some have already become hanging fishers. Hardly had the man landed when someone laughed. "Old Jia, you didn't catch him again? This is your 3rd time." Someone said, "Old Jia, you have to succeed in 3 days. Why don't you choose a level, 51 wind sky wing? A wingspan of 6 meters is enough." "That's right. Old Jia, you've spent a day and a half." The guy named Old Jia simply stuffed a spiritual fruit into his mouth and chuckled. "I've grasped the rhythm. I'll definitely succeed one more time." As he spoke, he simply sat cross-legged and began to recover without listening to anybody else. It was not until this moment that someone noticed Han Fei's arrival. Perhaps because Han Fei had been away from the island for too long, nobody remembered him at this moment. Also, according to Luo Xiaobai and the others, Sun Mu and the others had already become hidden fishers. They must have caught the wind sky wings and obtained the wings, right? Someone glanced at Han Fei. "Bro, are you here to adapt to the desolation gale in advance too?" Someone was slightly surprised. You look familiar. I think I've seen you somewhere before." Someone teased him. "You look familiar to everybody." Someone teased him. "Bro, what level of wind sky wings are you going to catch?" Someone asked. "Bro, if you want to make a breakthrough, you'll have to wait for a few days. Breakthroughs have been arranged in the next 5 days. Don't overlap with other people's breakthroughs. You'll be competing for spiritual energy and your level will be unstable." Listening to their chatter, Han Fei thought to himself, These people are all half a step away from becoming hidden fishers. Therefore, the desolation gale that could only tear apart advanced hanging fishers couldn't threaten them at all. That was why some of them were chatting with each other telepathically. Han Fei's lips curled. Excuse me, how do I get to the desolation graveyard? Suddenly, all the telepathic messages were gone. Many people stared at Han Fei in shock. Those who were cultivating looked at Han Fei in surprise, and those who teased him just now were dumbfounded. Someone who had just failed to catch a wind sky wing suddenly opened his eyes and eyed Han Fei up and down. You're going to the desolation graveyard? Han Fei slightly nodded. I'll have a try. Hiss. Many people gasped, as if they were amazed by Han Fei's courage. Someone asked in surprise, Bro, which department are you a heavenly talent from? Someone said solemnly, Nobody dares to go to the desolation graveyard for months. It's already the 5th one this month. Han Fei asked in surprise, The 5th? Are many people going to the desolation graveyard? Someone said in self-mockery, That's right. A fully armed fatty, the genius refiners Guan Qinyan and Mu Jie, a sexy woman from the law enforcement team. And you? Han Fei was slightly intrigued. Guan Qinyan and Mu Jie were here too? However, it did make sense on second thought. Those two guys were refiners. Since they were fully armed, they must have been well prepared. Old Jia said. It's said that the desolation graveyard is behind the middle of the Grand Canyon. You'll have to walk at least 3,000 kilometers to see the desolation graveyard. Someone said, Bro, don't blame us for not reminding you. The further you go, the stronger the desolation gale will be and the more desolation water there will be. Powerful wind sky wings might even attack you. Han Fei slightly nodded. Thank you for the reminder. After that person said that, Han Fei had already walked forward. A moment later, Han Fei passed everybody and stepped into the desolation gale that was even more furious. Second, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 839. Under everybody's gaze, Han Fei walked to the depths of the Wind Sky Canyon without hesitation. The desolation gale was far from a threat to Han Fei at this moment. As a matter of fact, after he became a hidden fisher, he had to capture the Wind Sky Wings and the Wind Pearl as soon as possible. Before he came, Luo Xiaobai had said repeatedly, The sooner you take it, the better the effect will be. Han Fei moved faster and faster. It wasn't until he disappeared from everybody's sight that someone heaved a long sigh. 5 heavenly talents have come this month, and all of them want to go to the desolation graveyard. All of them want to go to desolation graveyard. I wonder how the other 4 are doing. Someone smiled bitterly. Anyway, it has nothing to do with us. Not everybody can go to the desolation graveyard. Those who are weak like us can only stay here. Those who are stronger will be on their way to the desolation graveyard. However, those who can reach the desolation graveyard are definitely the heavenly talents of the heavenly talents. Someone slightly shook his head. I only hope that he doesn't die. After only 100 kilometers, Han Fei found that the desolation gale here was strong enough to hurt peak-level hanging fishers. After another dozens of kilometers, Han Fei sensed that someone was sitting cross-legged and seemed to be training with the desolation gale of this level. When Han Fei approached, the person glanced at Han Fei but didn't speak telepathically. After walking for about 300 kilometers, Han Fei found more than 50 people cultivating here. Someone's eyes flashed when they saw Han Fei. Are you Han Fei? Someone was immediately surprised when he said Han Fei. How is it possible? Didn't Han Fei die in the outer sea? The person who spoke said in surprise, He refined weapons for me. I can't be wrong. Someone asked tentatively, Han Fei? Han Fei slightly nodded. Don't worry about me. Just keep training. Then, someone frowned. Han Fei, where are you from? The outer sea or the scattered stars island? Han Fei knew what he was trying to say. He casually pointed at his waist tag. 6 stars. I just got it. Someone was shocked. Right, Han Fei's waist tag couldn't have been more than 5 stars when he left. Now, he had a 6-star waist tag on his waist. Obviously, he was from the Scattered Stars Island. After Han Fei passed by, someone sighed. He's a tough guy. After staying in the outer sea for so long, everyone thought that he was dead. Who knew that he would actually come back alive? Someone looked at Han Fei's disappearing back. Is he going to the Desolation Graveyard too? Quite a number of people died there. Someone sneered. This is a character who dares to go to sea alone as an intermediate hanging fisher. Who would believe that he didn't go to the Desolation Graveyard? Someone shook his head and said, I hope he doesn't die inside. Kacha. Braving the terrifying Nirvana astral wind, he traveled for more than 1,000 miles. Along the way, he encountered dozens of people. But at this moment, Han Fei stopped. The power of the Desolation Gale had reached the point where even peak-level hanging fishers were in danger. Han Fei's ultra-quality battlesuit was already full of cracks. At this moment, the battlesuit was shattered, and the Desolation Gale that was as sharp as a knife was blowing on Han Fei's body, making clanging sounds. However, that wasn't a reason for him to stop. The reason why Han Fei stopped was that he sensed a trace of water mist mixed in the Desolation Gale. The water mist was corrosive. Because of that, the ultra-quality battle suit on him was completely shattered. Desolation water? Swoosh. A golden battle suit fell on Han Fei's body. Putting on the semi-divine weapon, Han Fei stepped forward again. At this moment, fewer and fewer people were running into him. After another 300 kilometers, Han Fei found someone who was cultivating cross-legged. After walking for more than 1,500 kilometers, one powerful wind sky wing after another appeared in Han Fei's sight. However, they were hovering 300 meters above Han Fei's head. Some of the wind sky wings even peeked at Han Fei curiously. At this moment, a wind sky wing with a wingspan of more than 6 meters passed by 50 meters above Han Fei's head. Han Fei wasn't bothered at all. He simply ignored them and kept moving forward. 2,000 kilometers later, the Desolation water was no longer in the form of mist, but tiny pillars of water. Swish! One of the Desolation water fell outside of Han Fei's golden battle suit. Han Fei's body slightly trembled from the shockwave. Hula! Suddenly, Han Fei sensed something above his head, and a Desolation Gale fell from above. Han Fei moved sideways and raised his head, only to find that a wind sky wing with a wingspan of more than 8 meters was trying to attack him. You don't want me to move forward? Han Fei casually launched a golden fist mark at the wind sky wing. However, the latter's speed was extremely fast, even though the golden fist mark had suddenly appeared a few meters away from it. However, the tiny distance gave the wind sky wing a chance to escape. However, Han Fei's lips curled. It was because the moment the fist was punched out, the void lines had already flown out and hooked one of its wings. Once one of the void lines was hooked, the rest wouldn't be able to escape. Unless the wind sky wing's soul was shattered the moment it was hooked, the wind sky wing's soul would be shattered. If it was too late, it would be too late. Han Fei sneered. You think you can come within 50 meters of me? The 9 void lines had already hooked the wind sky wing. The latter had noticed it the moment it was hooked. As if struggling from its soul, the wind sky wing knew that it couldn't get away, so it dashed straight at Han Fei. Information popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Name Wind Sky Wing Introduction: an exotic creature born in the wild wind. It feeds on all kinds of wind and breeds wind pearls. The wind sky wing is timid, curious, and likes to fly. It likes to bully creatures weaker than itself. When its 4 wings are opened, it can raise wind blades and spew out Desolation Gale. Human beings can obtain wind sky wing feathers by swallowing the wind pearl. Level 53 Quality: Exotic Spiritual Energy greater than 6,806 points. Effect: if it's eaten for a long time, it can significantly improve one's physique. Collectible wind pearl absorbable. Note: the wind pearl must be taken within 100 seconds, or it will return to the world as a desolation gale. Han Fei snorted. It's an exotic creature. No wonder it dares to approach me. However, brother, bye-bye. Han Fei stomped on the ground and activated the coiled turtle array. At the same time, Han Fei opened his right hand and controlled the void lines to launch a streak of golden light, which shattered half of the sharp wind blades. When the remaining wind blades cut through the coiled turtle array and hit Han Fei, they didn't have much power left. A moment later, the wind sky wing crouched before Han Fei. With a smile, Han Fei jumped onto the wind sky wing. He already had a second vision. Vaguely, Han Fei saw that there seemed to be a hint of bright green, mysterious air currents in the desolation gale. Han Fei vaguely felt that the wind sky wing he controlled had the desire to swallow it. Is this why the wind sky wing swallows wind? Fish mount. Han Fei began to fly at a low altitude on the wind sky wing. Han Fei was slightly tempted to have such a mount. He could control creatures with the void lines, and there were so many wind sky wings here. Could he use the demon purification pot to swallow a few wind sky wings of a higher level? However, Han Fei gave up the idea as soon as it popped up. It was simply because it was too repetitive. Now that he had little gold, he could fly extremely fast. Compared to the wind sky wing, little gold was much more powerful. Why would he want a contractual spiritual beast with a wind sky wing? Han Fei didn't even think he needed wings. However, since other creatures had wings, he should have one too. After all, he couldn't use little gold all the time. However, although he didn't need a contractual spiritual beast with a wind sky wing, it didn't mean that he didn't need a wind sky wing in the creatures he synthesized. However, he needed a wind sky wing that was stronger than exotic creatures. Having made up his mind, Han Fei rode the wind sky wing forward. Hula! Hula! The desolation gale was getting stronger and stronger. When he reached 3,000 kilometers, Han Fei found that he was extremely cold inside the golden battlesuit. With a thought, the golden battlesuit returned to his body. In an instant, his body was covered in a layer of frost. The biting coldness seeped into his flesh from his skin. The wind was like a knife, and the water was eroding. Han Fei's sturdy body, under the dual stimulations, felt that his blood was boiling and fighting back. Han Fei realized that he could practice the 108 desolate god body in this place. Han Fei's body began to turn green. There was no telling whether it was because of the cold or because of the wind and water, but there were some shallow white marks on his body that were caused by the wind blades. Han Fei took a deep breath. Even with his body, he could feel it 3,000 kilometers away. What would happen to ordinary people? Guan Qinyan and Mu Jiaer should be able to reach this place, but they must have come in battlesuits, probably semi-divine ones. As for the other two heavenly talents, it was hard to say. Even if their bodies could withstand the Nirvana astral wind and Nirvana water, they would only be able to advance another 500 kilometers at most, and that would already be incredible. Hiya! All of a sudden, Han Fei found that the wind sky wing he was controlling slowed down. There seemed to be fear deep inside its soul. Hula! Han Fei instantly recalled the void lines and jumped away from the wind sky wing. Han Fei didn't care about the wind sky wing at all. It was too weak for Han Fei to care about. In the next moment, 2 visible wind blades fell. Poochie! The wind sky wing that he controlled was beheaded. Shoot! Why is it so fierce? Didn't they say that the wind sky wings are timid? Han Fei raised his head, only to find that a wind sky wing with a wingspan of 10 meters was opening its mouth at him. Hee hee! Han Fei moved his feet and rushed out against the desolation gales. At the same time, he extended his senses, and the void lines danced in the desolation gales, trying to catch the wind sky wing. Logically speaking, it should be very difficult for any living creature to sense the void lines in such a wild and devastating environment. However, the wind sky wing suddenly dodged, as if it had sensed the danger. Is it because the wind sky wing is too familiar with this environment? However, the void lines chased after the wind sky wing like maggots in a bone. The void lines weren't real fishing lines in the first place, and they could ignore the rampant desolation gales. However, the wind sky wing seemed to be frightened and fled crazily. After only one moment, it escaped from Han Fei's range of perception. Han Fei was lost for words. What a fast reaction! If you were any slower, I would have used you as my ride. Withdrawing the void lines, Han Fei curled his lips. It seems that I'm still not good enough with the divine manipulation technique. The third chapter. Asking for votes. 10,000 words. I've been making up stories in my dreams recently. I dreamed of a ferocious cat girl last night. Okay, I'll livestream tonight. Let's chat. Also, asking for monthly votes tomorrow. Asking for monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 840. A wind sky wing fled in panic. As a result, none of the wind sky wings dared to fly above Han Fei's head for a long time. Just as I expected, they're all cowards. Han Fei couldn't help but curse. Now that he didn't have a vehicle, he was running forward. Because he didn't have a battle suit, Han Fei was completely naked while he ran. Han Fei couldn't help but have mixed feelings. Thankfully, nobody saw him, or he would have been greatly embarrassed. In the harsh desolation gales and the stinging desolation water, Han Fei had goosebumps all over his body. After running for 800 kilometers, Han Fei had occasional bloodstains on his body, although no blood was oozing out yet. It was enough to suggest that the danger here was unbearable for regular peak-level hanging fishers. All of a sudden, Han Fei sensed that a red battle suit had appeared. A woman. Han Fei immediately put on the golden battle suit. The moment he put on the battle suit, he felt that he had crawled into a warm quilt on a cold winter day. Han Fei wasn't detected until he was about 15 kilometers away from the woman. Han Fei, on the other hand, was smiling. She was a familiar face. He didn't expect to meet her here. TSK. Mo Fian looked determined and was walking forward step by step. She knew that it wasn't easy to reach the desolation graveyard. She already felt that she couldn't hold on any longer after only 4,000 kilometers. It had nothing to do with the quality of the battlesuit. A semi-divine weapon was so powerful that it might be able to hold on for another 1,000 kilometers. However, it was no longer a question of whether or not it was a semi-divine weapon, but whether or not her body was strong enough to walk over. She heaved a long sigh, envious of the body practitioners. If the body practitioners put on the semi-divine battlesuit, they could definitely walk 5,000 kilometers. They would have a chance to get a pair of soul wings when they reached that place. All of a sudden, she sensed that somebody was approaching. Mo Fian's expression changed greatly after she saw it. She didn't expect that it would be Han Fei. Didn't Han Fei run to the outer sea? Why didn't he die out there? Mo Fian couldn't have looked more awful when she thought of the grudge between them and Han Fei. She said telepathically, "Han Fei, let's talk." Han Fei chuckled. "Yo. At this time, you finally have something to say? What did you do before?" Mo Fian was speechless when she saw that Han Fei could still run wildly in such an environment. However, when he thought of Han Fei's inhuman physique, he felt relieved. This was why she hated body cultivators. Although her own physique was not weak, it could even be compared to Yang Diu's. But that was only relative. Facing Han Fei, she knew that she couldn't beat him. Han Fei smiled weirdly. "I always thought that you had become hidden fishers long ago. I didn't expect that you still haven't advanced. Could it be that they were waiting for me?" Mo Fian gritted her teeth, released the fish hook in her hand, and possessed her spiritual beast. A red long sword in her hand surged with spiritual energy. Mo Fian asked, "Han Fei, if you attack me, how are you going to explain yourself when you get out?" Han Fei sneered. "I've already moved to the Empyrean waterfall and become an unscrupulous young man. What do I have to fear? Emofian froze for a moment. She didn't know that Han Fei was so unscrupulous. Was the Empyrean waterfall the backyard of the Thug Academy? Han Fei's senior brothers and senior sisters all lived in the Empyrean waterfall. Now, he had moved there too. Although there were private fights between humans, there were only the two of them here. As long as Han Fei didn't kill her, and as long as Han Fei simply wounded her so that she couldn't get the good wings, Han Fei would be the winner. Emofian thought of all this in an instant and said, Han Fei, as long as you and I are safe this time, I won't attack you again. The hatred between you and Sun Mu has nothing to do with me. The sea token has nothing to do with me either. Han Fei wasn't in a hurry to attack. He grinned. I'd be a fool if I believed you. You want to be safe, don't you? Hand over your sea-swallowing seashells, rings, bracelets, necklaces, and earrings. Otherwise, you can catch the wind sky wings with a wingspan of 5 meters. Emofian's expression changed greatly. She secretly cursed Han Fei for being shameless, knowing that Han Fei was cheating her of her reserves. This guy was going to cut off his future path. Chilla. Without a word, Han Fei had already slashed at her with the draw technique. At this moment, Han Fei's draw technique was almost the same as the attack of a hidden fisher. Emofian sensed it the moment Han Fei attacked. 2 water dragons charged out, and she slashed her longsword at the same time. She discovered, to her shock, that Han Fei could still launch such a powerful attack in such a harsh environment. In comparison, her strength was suppressed by the Desolation Gale and the Desolation Water, and she couldn't perform her strongest attack at all. Bam! The water dragons exploded, and the sword light split the water. Emofian only managed to block Han Fei's attack with her protective jade. She looked at Han Fei in shock. You have the combat ability of a hidden fisher? Han Fei sneered. Are you going to hand it over or not? I'm told that it's easy to die in the Desolation Graveyard. You're so strong that I believe you can definitely reach the Desolation Graveyard, right? Emofian's heart trembled. Han Fei wanted to kill her? Emofian turned her hand and took out an ancient jade. Han Fei's eyes slightly constricted when he saw the ancient jade. Was it an ancient jade similar to the fist mark of the Chow family? Han Fei slightly frowned. How many such ancient jades do you have? As he spoke, Han Fei took out an ancient jade too, which was exactly the one that Chao Chiu gave him earlier. Han Fei chuckled. Come on. I have a lot of trump cards, but I hope that you can figure out your current situation. You're no match for me right now. While Emofian was thinking, she suddenly sensed the palpitation of her soul. Swoosh. Emofian turned into water and fled in horror. She didn't see Han Fei doing anything just now. Why did she have such a strong sense of crisis? Han Fei was slightly surprised too. It seemed that the void lines were not omnipotent. At least for someone as strong as Emofian, she was very sensitive to crises and could predict and escape in advance. To prevent Emofian from escaping with her full strength or by burning herself, Han Fei temporarily withdrew the void lines. Han Fei sneered. I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. Give me the thing and I won't attack you. If you don't, I don't mind wasting some time and playing with you. After all, there's no time limit here. Emofian's eyes were cold. Han Fei, you're stronger than me in such an environment, but are you confident that you can catch me? Han Fei chuckled. You can have a try. If you can escape as fast as Yi Baiyu, forget what I said. If you can't, you'll have to consider whether or not you can die. Gotcha. Oh. Emofian was not intimidated by Han Fei. She instantly crushed the ancient jade, and the azure dragon roared and charged at Han Fei. Han Fei secretly cursed. These people were really not easy to deal with. If it were someone else, they might have surrendered. Should I attack? Han Fei was lost for words. After thinking for a moment, the ancient jade in his hand cracked. However, this punch was not aimed at the dragon's shadow, but at Emofian. Emofian was shocked. She didn't expect that at all. Was Han Fei really not afraid of death? Han Fei, are you crazy? Han Fei pointed his finger and performed the spirit sealing technique on Mo Fian, who was running away. At the same time, a mist was formed. In an instant, a sword light slashed at the azure dragon. Overlord's technique. The power of Snowmorn was increased by 8 times with the Overlord's technique, and Little Fatty was attached to him, as well as the coiled turtle array and the 6 spirits' armor. Instantly, Han Fei made a choice. He chose to take the attack by himself, and Mo Fian wouldn't be able to escape unless she took out another ancient jade. Otherwise, how could she avoid the punch mark of the Chow family? Boom! Snowmorn's attack wasn't that strong after all. However, it did weaken half of the Azure Dragon's attack. To prevent Little Fatty from being heavily wounded, Han Fei added a sacrificing punch. This time, when the attack hit him, Han Fei had been blown away, and his golden battle suit was cracked. Pooh! Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood. However, he didn't panic. He quickly stuffed a spiritual fruit into his mouth, and the void lines were extended again. There was no telling if she sensed the real crisis, but Mo Fian, who was running away, crushed 2 more ancient jades. Han Fei's eyes almost popped out. One was aimed at the Chow family's punch mark, and the other at Han Fei. Mo Fian, on the other hand, had already rushed away and disappeared. Son of AB***, he's really rich. Having no time to chase after her, the Overlord appeared and slashed at the Azure Dragon with Snowmorn. Little Gold appeared and smashed the Azure Dragon's phantom with the lightning blade. Thankfully, the Overlord had the time to launch a second attack. Han Fei was blown hundreds of meters away again. He vomited 2 mouthfuls of blood before he staggered to his feet. Bah! Let's see if your ancient jades are still as strong after I become a hidden fisher. Recalling the void lines, the Overlord, and Little Gold, Han Fei hurriedly cast the divine healing technique on himself, sat cross-legged, and began to heal his wounds. As for Mo Fian, he couldn't catch up to her anymore. However, it wasn't bad that he had used the peak strike of 3 hidden fissures at once. However, Han Fei hoped that the woman didn't have as many ancient jades as Chao Chiu did. Otherwise, he would have suffered losses. After all, he only had 1 punch mark of the Chow family, which had been used up. After a round of furious attacks, Han Fei couldn't see any wind sky wings anymore. They must have been scared away by the terrifying attack just now. It wasn't until half an hour later that Han Fei finally got back on his feet and moved on. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 841. Hundreds of kilometers away, Mo Fian was still running, but she couldn't have looked more awful. She had to use 3 attacks just to deal with Han Fei. She couldn't have felt better. After all, trump cards weren't cabbages. She had prepared them for the Desolation Graveyard, but half of them had been used up. Also, she was surprised that Han Fei hadn't chased after her yet. In this case, it would be even more difficult for her to go to the Desolation Graveyard. Thinking about that, Mo Fian chose to give up. She thought that even if Han Fei went to the Desolation Graveyard, he might not be able to get the Soul Wings. Even if Han Fei got the Soul Wings, he would only be faster, but he wouldn't be unbearable for her. What really shocked Mo Fian was that the peak-level attack of a hidden fissure failed to wound Han Fei. This guy dared to take it head-on? It suggested that Han Fei was very strong. Mo Fian couldn't help but look at the sky. Han Fei, you win. Han Fei didn't care about Mo Fian's fury at all. From the perspective of human beings, he didn't have to attack Mo Fian and the others. But if he met them in private, he would have killed them. After all, those people had done him a lot of harm. If it were Sun Mu just now, Han Fei would have killed him without hesitation, instead of robbing him like he did to Mo Fian. The relationship between Han Fei and Sun Mu was irreconcilable. Looking at the golden battlesuit, Han Fei found a few cracks on it. He had to take the power of a hidden fissure seriously. The seal's attack was already so powerful. If he were to face them in real battle, he would probably have to run away. Putting away the golden battle suit, Han Fei pressed on for another 800 kilometers, only to discover that his skin was cracking, and blood was oozing out of the bloody marks on his skin. Han Fei's face slightly changed, and he took the opportunity to practice the 108 desolate god body. Swallowing 5 energy spiritual fruits in a row, Han Fei began to practice. Under the blast of the desolation gale and the desolation water, Han Fei felt that his strength had grown slightly, but it couldn't be significantly improved. No, I don't have enough energy to practice in such a situation. Besides, I've already reached the peak of the hanging fisher realm. It's hard for me to improve my desolate god body or the indestructible body. Han Fei cast the divine healing technique on himself and his eyes flickered. He was considering whether to make a breakthrough. After the breakthrough, he only had about 3 days to absorb the wind bead. Moreover, the sooner he absorbed it, the better. But he hadn't even seen the desolation graveyard yet. Wait until I really can't walk anymore. Han Fei secretly heaved a sigh of relief and continued to move forward, ignoring the wounds on his body. Once the number of wounds exceeded 100, he would cast the divine healing technique on himself. After nearly 200 kilometers, 3 people appeared in Han Fei's perception. The 3 of them looked very similar. They were all wearing armor that was armed to the teeth. Even the holes for their eyes and mouths were not left. They were like 3 iron lumps. Among them, one was thin, one was short, and one was fat. The 3 of them sat on the ground and seemed to be cultivating. Chao Qiu. Han Fei recognized Chao Qiu's armor because the guy had written, "Young Master of the Chao family," on his armor in a flamboyant way. Han Fei was lost for words. He immediately realized why Chao Qiu carved words on his armor. It was to tell others that he was a member of the Chao family, and whoever dared to touch him would be killed. Han Fei was amused. The other 2 must be Guan Qinyan and Mu Jia. Han Fei thought for a moment and decided to meet them since they were all his acquaintances. So, after putting on the golden battlesuit, Han Fei walked over. When he was 20 kilometers away from them, Chao Qiu suddenly looked back, and so did Guan Qinyan. Han Fei was lost for words. It wasn't surprising that Guan Qinyan had discovered him. But how did Chao Qiu discover him too? How did this kid's spiritual power grow so fast? When he was in the level 3 fishery, his spiritual power was only 800 meters. Logically speaking, this brat's strength should be very weak. Han Fei's golden battlesuit didn't cover his face. Because the semi-divine battlesuit couldn't cover his whole body, it didn't mean much to him whether he had a helmet or not. Han Fei. Brother Han. Mu Jiar looked back in confusion and asked in confusion, "Who? Isn't Han Fei dead?" A moment later, Mu Jiar jumped to her feet in surprise. "Han Fei? You're still alive?" Guan Qinyan looked at Han Fei's waist. "Huh? Han Fei, have you been back to the Scattered Stars Island?" Chao Qiu had already run close. "Han Fei, I heard that the Sea Demon Mountain is gone. Is it because of you? How's the outside of the Scattered Stars Island? Is it exciting? I thought you were dead." Han Fei said with a smile, "I'm not dead. However, it's a long story, and I can't tell you now. What are you guys doing sitting here? Why aren't you moving forward?" Guan Qinyan was the first to calm down. He looked at Han Fei and said, "Brother Han, the Desolation Graveyard is 100 kilometers ahead, but there are countless hero souls there. We found that it's hard to break through." Han Fei chuckled. "Then make breakthroughs. Make breakthroughs first, and then try again." Mu Jiar said angrily, "Just go ahead and see for yourself. It's not about breakthroughs. Those hero souls are too strong for us to defeat." Han Fei tilted his head and glanced at her. "Have you fought them?" Mu Jiar paused for a moment. "Not yet, but I certainly can't defeat them." Han Fei was lost for words. "Do you think I'll believe you?" 1 coward, 2 cowards, and Guan Qinyan who didn't know how to fight at all. "It would be a miracle if you could defeat them." Han Fei waved his hand and said, "Let's see how strong they are." A moment later, when Han Fei's senses reached the desolation graveyard, he discovered, to his surprise, that it was full of bones. The illusions of the wind sky wings were floating one after another. Even though they were only hero souls, their wingspan was at least 10 meters high. It meant that every wind sky wing was at least level 55 when it died. No wonder Mujiar claimed that they couldn't defeat them. Han Fei's first thought was that he couldn't defeat them either. It wouldn't be a big deal if there were only 1 or 2 of them. However, Han Fei discovered more than 10 hero souls of such a level after a casual scan with his senses. It was needless to say that there were still places that he hadn't seen yet. Pondering for a moment, Han Fei asked, "May I ask, can these hero souls be turned into wind pearls?" Chao Chiu replied, "They can't. It's said that those hero souls will devour each other and eventually form particularly powerful wind sky wings. As long as you kill the powerful wind sky wings, you'll be able to get the wind god pearl. After you swallow it, you'll probably get very powerful wings." Guan Qinyan added, "However, it's also possible to get mutated wind pearls and obtain soul wings that are faster and more effective than regular wings." After a brief silence, Han Fei said, "Then I think you'd better not look for them. Can you kill them after you find them?" Chao Chiu mumbled, "I'm not looking for them. We're planning to hunt the living wind sky wings." Han Fei chuckled. "With the 3 of you here and the 4 of us here, which wind sky wing will come to us?" Mujiar took out a pearl and said, "Yes, use this. Use this, they will come." Han Fei glanced at the pearl in Mujiar's hand, only to discover that it was a sealed pill. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Since you can lure the wind sky wings here, why don't you break through and grab the wind pearl?" Mujiar and Chao Chiu turned their heads away, and Guan Qinyan said calmly, "Because we can't beat them." Han Fei didn't know what to say about those guys who had no combat ability at all. However, suddenly, an idea flashed across Han Fei's mind, and he said, "Well, what do you think? Actually, I think I can beat them. However, I'll pay a high price. I can't help you for free, can I?" Chao Chiu raised his hand. "I'll trade with you. I'll trade with you with the 3rd strengthened version of the poison god." Han Fei said casually, "1,000 kilograms. Pooh." Chao Chiu staggered and fell to the ground. "I don't have that much. I only weigh 100 kilograms in total." Considering the effect of the poison god, Han Fei chuckled. "Fine, 100 kilograms it is. You have to give me 3 fist marks of the Chao family." "1. I don't have many left." Han Fei narrowed his eyes and said, "Ball? Do you know who I met on my way here?" Chao Chiu was confused. "Who?" Han Fei snorted. "Mo Fian." Chao Chiu asked in surprise, "She's here too?" Han Fei said casually, "I even had a fight with her. She gave me 3 of your ancient jades the moment she came. So, I'll be in danger after I go out. You don't even want to give me 3 fist marks of the Chao family. That's unacceptable." Chao Chiu hesitated for a moment and said casually, "Then I can only give you 100 kilograms of the 3rd strengthened version of the poison god." Han Fei grinned. "Deal." Putting the poison god and the fist marks of the Chao family into Forge the Universe, Han Fei looked at Mu Jiaer and Guan Qinyan unhurriedly and said earnestly, "You see, my requirements are actually not high." Mu Jiaer raised her hand. "I'll give you a set of semi-divine armor." Han Fei pointed at the golden battle suit on his body and said, "If you give me a divine suit, I'll take it. As for the semi-divine suit, I can refine it." Guan Qinyan sighed. "Sure enough, you can already refine semi-divine weapons. It seems that you didn't waste your time in the outer sea. Brother Han, what do you want? If it's that kind of attack, I have some here too. I can give you 5. Han Fei's heart did a flip. Damn, they are all big shots. Was this thing really that worthless? Han Fei's eyes flickered. Actually, I don't need so many. After I become a hidden fisher, This kind of attack can only be regarded as a very ordinary trump card. Now I can accept credit points, level 2 soul crystals, spirit awakening fluid, and spiritual spring. Old Guan, it's not that I don't want to help you, but if I catch one for each of you, I'm afraid it will cost me a lot. Guan Qingyan was silent for a while. I don't have level 2 soul crystals and spirit awakening fluid. I still have 2 million credit points and 20,000 caddies of spiritual spring. Han Fei patted Guan Qingyan's shoulder and said, it doesn't matter. Just give me 2 more pieces of that ancient jade. I don't want more. Guan Qingyan nodded and gave the jade to Han Fei. 200 credit points were immediately transferred to his account. At this time, Han Fei was overjoyed. When he deduced the void fishing art, he had to improve his strength, upgrade his spiritual heritage, and then refine semi-divine weapons. At that time, he only had 80 million points of spiritual energy left. Now, together with what Guan Qingyan gave him, he had exactly 100 million. 2 million credit points could be exchanged for a lot of things. Han Fei sighed leisurely. Alas, it's not easy to make money these days. I have to work part-time as a fighter, and I have to take on such a dangerous task. After that, Han Fei looked at Mu Jiar again, and Mu Jiar was so scared that she took a step back. Second update. Please vote. End of this chapter. Chapter 842. In fact, Chao Qiu, Guan Qingyan, and Mu Jiar all knew that Han Fei was taking the opportunity to extort money from them. What did this guy say? That was exactly what he was. In fact, a lot of people knew that, however, they were only willing to do it because Han Fei was quite a legend. Although Han Fei was sometimes greedy, it was widely acknowledged that he was crazy, strong, and capable. At the very least, Han Fei broke into the Dark Hunter Legion and went to sea for Xia Shaochan, which suggested that he valued his friends. It was also why they weren't afraid that Han Fei would steal their money. Besides, in fact, they had brought a lot of things like the strike of a peak-level hidden fisher when they came. It wouldn't hurt them to give Han Fei a few of them. However, the things that Chao Qiu and the others didn't care about could often be put to unimaginable use in Han Fei's hands. So, Han Fei felt that he would definitely make a profit. Mu Jiar hesitated for a moment. I'll give you 50,000 kilograms of spiritual spring, 1,000,000 points of credit, and an ancient jade. Han Fei thought for a moment and grinned. Okay, deal. Han Fei had made a huge profit this time. Not counting the spiritual fruits, he had a storage of 150 million points of spiritual energy, which was enough for him to use for a long time. However, since he had taken someone's money, he had to help them get rid of their troubles. Of course, Han Fei still kept his word. Han Fei said, Mu Jiar, are you sure that your pill can attract the wind sky wings? I can help you take them down, but I can't attract them. I need your help. Mu Jiar nodded quickly. Yes. If you don't believe me, I'll show you. Chao Qiu hurried to stop her. Hey. Wait a minute. Take a step back. Otherwise, the hero souls will be attracted too. A moment later, 100 kilometers away from the Desolation Graveyard, Mu Jiar took out the pill and said, Be careful. The wind sky wings here have a wingspan of at least 12 meters. They're very fierce. Last time, the 3 of us had to join hands to repel it. Han Fei nodded. Don't worry. Don't attack them. After all, you all have amulets and semi-divine armor. Leave the battle to me. Chao Qiu and Mu Jiar nodded, and only Guan Qingyan said, Brother Han, be careful. Han Fei nodded. Wait a moment. Let me set up an array. What Han Fei was going to set up was a maze. The wind sky wings were too fast and good at escaping. It would be very difficult to capture them with the void lines alone. After all, their ability to sense danger was quite strong. If he used the formation, it would be completely different. As long as it was trapped in the array, as long as it was slightly trapped, he could pretend to let the 9-tailed mantis shrimp catch it with the void chains to paralyze it, but in fact, he would catch it with the void lines. If it didn't work, he could try to seal a spirit in the wind sky wing as long as he was fast enough. As long as it was sealed for half a second, it would be finished. Guan Qinyan was also very interested in arrays. Seeing that Han Fei was about to set up a formation, he came over curiously. However, when he saw Han Fei drawing lines with spiritual energy on the fish skin, he asked in surprise, "Brother Han, did you consume a lot of spiritual energy?" Han Fei smiled faintly. "It doesn't matter." Guan Qinyan asked, "Brother Han, what kind of array technique is this? It seems quite special." Naturally, Han Fei didn't intend to teach them, nor could he teach them here. He said casually, "It's a maze I saw on a certain array book. Okay, just get ready." A moment later, the array was drawn. Han Fei cast the divine healing technique on himself to heal his wounds, before he shouted at Mu Jie, "Open it." Hearing that, Mu Jie immediately opened the seal on the pill. In an instant, a strange fragrance wafted out, carried by the wind to an unknown distance. Hula! After only 20 seconds, Han Fei saw 3 wind sky wings rushing close from the sky. Shoot, 3 of them? Han Fei saw that one was level 56 and the other 2 were level 57. Han Fei roared, "Take care of yourself!" Overlord's technique. The 3 wind sky wings rushed close. 100 meters. 50 meters. Hula. 30 meters. Open. 3 wind blades swept at him, and the coiled turtle array below Han Fei's feet rose. At the same time, the infinity water blocked 100 meters in the sky, and the maze was raised. Within 500 meters of the array, a strange light flashed, illuminating the place. Under the attack of the desolation gale and the desolation water, the cloud-based techniques were useless. They might be blown away in the blink of an eye. Therefore, only light could confuse the eyes and disturb those creatures. At that moment, hundreds of black chains covered the sky, and the 3 wind sky wings fled in panic, as if they realized that they had been tricked. Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, creatures like the wind sky wings were very bold. He wouldn't have dared to do that if it were any other level 57 creature. Because, if he was not careful, he would be struck to death by the other party. Dazzled by the strange light, the wind sky wings didn't know where to go at all. They simply waved the wind blades and blew the desolation gale. However, those people were wearing semi-divine weapons, and the attacks weren't fatal. In the chaos, Han Fei finally hooked the soul of one of the wind sky wings. Immediately afterward, all 9 void lines hooked onto it. As Han Fei waved his finger, a gap appeared in the maze, and the other 2 wind sky wings quickly flew out. The one that was controlled by Han Fei fell to the ground heavily. Its soul was struggling. However, it was the soul that was hooked by the void lines in the first place. How could he let it get away? What Han Fei didn't know was that the power of the void lines was related to the soul strength of the creature that was being hooked. He didn't have such a feeling when he was fishing for the red-blood butterfly fish, because the red-blood butterfly fish's soul was much weaker than his. However, the wind sky wing's soul power wasn't necessarily weaker than Han Fei's. The void lines, on the other hand, were actually one of Han Fei's soul. When they were pulled, Han Fei felt a stinging pain in his soul. That was why he let the other 2 wind sky wings go. Otherwise, given Han Fei's personality, he wouldn't have let them go. A moment later, Han Fei sat on the wind sky wing palely. When the array was gone, Cao Qiu, Mu Jie and Guan Qinyan looked at Han Fei, dumbfounded. Cao Qiu danced in joy. "It worked! It worked! It's a level 57 wind sky wing with a 12-meter wingspan." Han Fei struggled to catch his breath. "Okay, which one of you wants to make a breakthrough? I've learned a soul technique that can control it for a while, but it's very exhausting for me. However, I've used up a lot of energy, so you have to hurry." Me. Cao Qiu and Mu Jie shouted at the same time. Cao Qiu nodded. "I'll go first." Mu Jie shook her head. "No, I'll go first." Han Fei said angrily, "Cut the crap. You make breakthroughs together. After the breakthroughs, the second capture operation will begin. Chao Chiu and Mu Jia sat on the ground at the same time and began to make breakthroughs. They were different from regular peak-level hanging fishers. They were all authentic second-generation rich kids, and they had a lot of good stuff on them. There was a spiritual spring in their sea swallowing seashells, so they didn't have to worry about the lack of spiritual energy. Guan Qinyan, however, looked at Han Fei in shock. A soul technique that could control creatures? What was the difference between that and possession? After all, if you controlled the other party's soul, it was equivalent to possession. Of course, he also knew that Han Fei could only control one wind sky wing. Or rather, Han Fei's soul should be slightly stronger than that of this wind sky wing. As for the other three, he couldn't control them. Therefore, Guan Qinyan had a more intuitive understanding of the power of Han Fei's soul. Guan Qinyan didn't know what Han Fei had experienced in the outer sea during this time. However, his array skills had improved by leaps and bounds. He could even refine semi-divine weapons. Now, he had even learned soul technique attacks. This caused him to have mixed feelings in his heart. Han Fei glanced at Guan Qinyan and said, "What are you thinking about? You can prepare for your breakthrough now. I'm going to set up a defense array. Otherwise, if there are too many wind sky wings, it will be hard for me to resist them." 2 hours passed. Mu Jia was one step ahead of Chao Chiu and became a hidden fisher. Han Fei observed for a while. Different from Jiuyin Ling's breakthrough to become a law enforcer, the breakthrough to become a hidden fisher was similar to a regular breakthrough. Mu Jia's realm wasn't stable yet. She hurried to take the green wind pearl off the wind sky wing's head. The wind sky wing under Han Fei's feet had completely disappeared, and it had completely turned into a big fish. Han Fei remembered that Luo Xiaobai said that she wouldn't kill it. Immediately, he recalled the void lines. The wind sky wing jumped on the ground in panic, and then it was swept into the sky by a strong wind. It waved its tail and rushed into the terrifying wind walls on the two sides of the wind sky canyon in panic. Mu Jia held the pearl and observed it for a while. Seeing that a wild wind seemed to be flashing inside the wind pearl, she exclaimed, "What a beautiful pearl!" Han Fei said angrily, "What are you talking about? We're all waiting for you. Just eat it." Being yelled at by Han Fei, Mu Jia immediately put the wind pearl into her mouth and swallowed it. At that moment, Mu Jia closed her eyes. At that moment, an illusionary white light gradually appeared behind Mu Jia. After a full 100 breaths, a pair of pure white wings unfurled from Mu Jia's back with a whoosh. "Something's wrong." Han Fei immediately realized that something was wrong. Mu Jia was wearing a semi-divine armor. If her wings could be opened, where were they rooted? Seeing Han Fei's surprise, Guan Qinyan said casually, "The wings are half real, so they can pass through the armor." Han Fei slightly nodded. However, he wasn't satisfied with the wings. Since he was capable of catching a level 57 wind sky wing, what about stronger ones? Ah! All of a sudden, Mu Jia flapped her wings and spun in the sky, before she was blown away by the wind. Han Fei cast his hook helplessly and pulled her back before he said angrily, "Can't you fly after you get out of here? Now that you're in the middle of a desolation storm, you can't fly at all." "Humph. I'll just fly. I've never flown before. Ha ha." Third. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 843. One day later, Chao Chiu and the other two advanced and gained wings. They couldn't wait to fly into the desolation gale. Guan Qinyan looked at Han Fei. "Brother Han, what about you? Are you going to continue exploring the desolation graveyard?" Mu Jia chattered, "Liar. It's not easy to advance 100 kilometers ahead. There are so many wind sky wing hero souls. Although they're timid, they're certainly braver than the living wind sky wings." Chao Chiu also said, "Han Fei, it's not easy. You can't beat them." Han Fei thought for a moment. "You can go out. I'll get my own wings myself." Mujiao, lend me your pill. Mujiao threw the pill to Han Fei unconcernedly and said, You can't keep it open for too long. This is a special soul attraction pill. Its only function is to attract the attention of the creatures nearby. Han Fei smiled casually. I've survived in the outer sea. I know that staying alive is more important. You can go back now. I'm afraid that no wind sky wings will come if there are too many people. Chao Chiu said with mixed feelings, Han Fei, are you really going to risk your life? In fact, wings are not a big deal. After all, they'll be useless when you become an explorer. Guan Qingyan said, Explorers can walk in the void and travel the world. However, it's not so easy to become an explorer. There are also law enforcers in between. Mu Jiao quickly echoed, in fact, law enforcers can walk in the void with spiritual energy too. However, explorers can borrow the mysterious power of nature. It's much simpler and more convenient. Han Fei slightly nodded. I know. You should leave now. It wasn't easy to drive Chao Chiu and the other two away. Instead of exploring deeper, Han Fei sat down and began to draw. Ever since he learned how to draw arrays, Han Fei had carried a bunch of fish skin drawings with him. It was for the sake of dealing with all kinds of unexpected situations. Then, he could simply throw out the drawings that he had drawn in advance and use them. Earlier, he captured a wind sky wing with a mystifying array, which proved that he could catch a wind sky wing with a wingspan of at least 12 meters. With that as a guarantee, as to whether or not he could capture the most powerful hero soul and obtain the Wind God Pearl. It wasn't that important anymore. However, if there was a better one, who would want a subpar one? 2 hours later, Han Fei rose again and walked 20 kilometers away from the Desolation Graveyard. From here, he could clearly sense that there was a huge difference between where he was and where he was now. The Nirvana astral gale there had weakened, while the Nirvana astral gale was still very strong at his current location. Even the golden battle suit had marks that looked like it had been cut by a knife. Moreover, the Nirvana water was slowly corroding the golden battle suit. Obviously, he shouldn't stay here for too long. However, a dozen wind sky wing hero souls were wandering in the area where the bones were piled up. They had no intention of leaving. Han Fei stood there for a moment, moved his fingers slightly, and the void lines slowly stretched out. After the void lines entered the Desolation Graveyard, the wind sky wing hero souls seemed anxious. Occasionally, they would flap their translucent wings as if they were looking for something. Han Fei was secretly relieved. Thankfully, the void lines didn't have real entities. If they were regular fishing lines, they would have been cut apart by the wind sky wing hero souls immediately. The void lines extended all the way, and Han Fei saw one wind sky wing hero soul after another. One way was a pile of bones, and the other a hero soul. Some of the hero souls were large, and some were small. Their wingspans were different too. However, the wingspan of the largest hero soul that Han Fei had seen so far was less than 10 meters. All of a sudden, Han Fei found that the void lines couldn't extend any further. Han Fei was briefly stunned. 300 kilometers? The range of the void lines that I can control effectively is 300 kilometers? The number was rather embarrassing. It was such a short distance that he had only just entered the Desolation Graveyard. He was still far away from the back of the Desolation Graveyard. Han Fei took a deep breath. It didn't work. Retracting the void lines, Han Fei glanced at the wind sky wing hero souls that were wandering in the front. The void lines were the soul hooking lines. Wasn't it only natural to hook the hero souls? Without any hesitation, Han Fei simply controlled the void lines to hook the wind sky wing hero souls. He looked at a hero soul that had a wingspan of 8 meters. However, every time the void lines approached the heroic soul would immediately run far away. Han Fei didn't have a chance at all. Han Fei was lost for words. As if he had made up his mind, Han Fei suddenly charged forward. Aren't you wary of intruders? You won't hide from me if I barge in, will you? The moment Han Fei rushed into the desolation graveyard, he felt extremely gloomy and cold. His body was suddenly covered by a layer of frost. His semi-divine battle suit was sizzling because of the friction. Not good. The desolation gale here is even stronger? Han Fei immediately realized the problem. It wasn't that the desolation gale here was weak, but that it seemed to have been completely mixed with the desolation water and could be highly destructive and corrosive. Therefore, it seemed to be weaker from the outside. But in fact, it was almost substantialized. How should he explain it? He could feel the wind, but when the wind was condensed into blades, he couldn't see the willow branches anymore. However, if he was cut by the wind blades, he wouldn't be as weak as before. The moment Han Fei came in, he felt that his breath was stagnated, and his strength was suppressed by at least 30%. Hula! Hula! Instantly, a dozen wind sky wing hero souls lunged at Han Fei. A terrifying wind blade visible to the naked eye swept towards Han Fei. The desolation gale from their mouths made Han Fei's blood freeze. Many wounds appeared on his face. Han Fei roared, "Come on, you're just a bunch of souls. Why are you so cocky here?" Han Fei threw a fish skin at his feet. Holding the soul attraction pill in one hand, he controlled the void lines with the other. Immediately, dazzling light blossomed and a maze appeared. Han Fei caught a wind sky wing with the void lines and retrieved the soul attraction pill. Han Fei threw 2 fish skins to the ground in a row. For a moment, an enormous old turtle appeared, and a large number of wind blades crushed the old turtle. Clang! 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 Seizing the opportunity, multiple arrays burst out of the other fish skin. Concealment array, breath concealing array, stealth array, spirit sealing array, kacha. After the coiled turtle array was broken through, the mystic light maze gradually dispersed. Han Fei, on the other hand, was gone. At this moment, Han Fei was lying on the back of a wind sky wing in absolute silence. Having tricked the wind sky wing hero souls, Han Fei was secretly relieved. He had finally made it in. However, the desolation gale here was too strong. The semi-divine weapon sizzled, and scratches appeared one after another. Hang in there. At least wait for 1,000 kilometers before it breaks down. Semi-divine weapons weren't real divine weapons after all. At this moment, Han Fei didn't have enough materials to craft real divine weapons. At this moment, the wind sky wings were everywhere in Han Fei's eyes. 20 meters away, a wind sky winged hero soul seemed to be curious about why the wind sky winged hero soul below Han Fei was making sizzling noises. So, it approached Han Fei. Han Fei didn't even dare to move his finger. Information popped up in his eyes. Name Wind Sky Wing Hero Soul Introduction. This is a common undead hero soul in the domain of wind. It can't return when it was alive and dies after it dies. It lives for the wind and dies for the wind. Because it doesn't allow other creatures to destroy its resting place, it turns into a soul. The Wind Sky Wing Hero soul retains part of its will when it was alive. It's timid, curious, fond of flying, and fond of bullying creatures weaker than itself. When its 4 wings are spread out, it can raise wind blades and spew desolation gale. Level 53 Quality, Undead, Spiritual Energy greater than 4,866 points, Collectible Undead Aura, Unabsorbable. You can't see me. You can't see me, Han Fei murmured to himself in a panic. The hero soul that approached him circled around and looked at him. Then, it suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a desolation gale. Shoot! You can really see me? Han Fei fell to the ground with a grunt. Among the piles of bones, Han Fei turned over and quickly retreated. When he was about to take out the array that he made, he looked at the bones on the ground in surprise. Even the semi-divine weapons were being corroded. Those bones, hula! A bunch of Wind Sky Wing hero souls discovered Han Fei and were running to him. Having no time to think, Han Fei activated the Overlord's technique and Little Gold. Han Fei didn't dare to use the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance or the sea racing technique, because it would be impossible for him to avoid the attacks in a straight line. Han Fei dashed quickly on the bones, and dozens of Wind Sky Wing hero souls came at him. He had to admit that the Wind Sky Wings were very good at flying. In the Desolation Gale, Han Fei's speed was reduced by at least 40%. However, the hero souls were still as fast as they could be. Han Fei made all kinds of weird postures in the water. In the meantime, the void lines controlled the Wind Sky Wing that had been controlled to fly to him. Han Fei turned around and landed on the Wind Sky Wing's back. This thing could fly faster than he could run. Chilla! In the Desolation Graveyard, Han Fei flew forward, backward, sideways, and obliquely, as if he were flying a fighter. Hula! On his way, all the Wind Sky Wings chased him. There were already hundreds of them behind Han Fei. Han Fei gnashed his teeth. I can't beat them. No, keep low. He controlled the Wind Sky Wings to keep low. He stretched out his hand, and a large number of white bones were collected into Forge the Universe. After all, even semi-divine weapons could be corroded, but the bones of the Wind Sky Wings couldn't. What did it mean? Therefore, Han Fei didn't stand on ceremony and accepted as many as he could. Han Fei felt that the most important quality of a cultivator was to be greedy. How could you cultivate if you weren't greedy? How could you get opportunities? So, he had to carry on the spirit of selflessness. All of a sudden, Han Fei sensed a crisis. In an instant, a streak of light approached quickly, and two wind blades dozens of meters long slashed at him. Shoot! Han Fei immediately recalled the void lines. He opened a fish skin map in his hand. Suddenly, a dazzling white light burst out from the diagram. It was an array that Han Fei had used to blind the Wind Sky Wings. However, it was actually useless. It could only delay the Wind Sky Wings for a while. Similarly, Han Fei only needed a little bit of time. Following the light was another gigantic turtle. It was the coiled turtle array that he had drawn earlier. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Clang, 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 swept by a gust of wind blades, Han Fei's figure had quietly disappeared. 4th. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 844. Han Fei, who appeared in Forge the Universe, subconsciously patted his chest. They were all heroic souls in the level of hidden fissures, and there were 1,000 of them. If he were any slower, he would have been dismembered. Han Fei fell to the ground. Obviously, the strength of a hanging fissure wasn't enough for him to travel in the Desolation Graveyard anymore. Could he survive it? Han Fei had some self-awareness. He could probably fight 1 or 2 of them alone. But 1,000 of them? He didn't have a second option except to run away. Also, Han Fei found that he had to be very fast in order to travel in the Desolation Graveyard. Based on this speed and the rhythm of the battle, not to mention staying here for 3 days. Would they even be able to stay here for 6 hours? Han Fei glanced at the bones. Taking a deep breath, he decided to become a hidden fissure first. After all, he could either capture the Wind Sky Wings very quickly or capture them outside the Desolation Graveyard. Either way, he would have enough time even if he became a hidden fissure. Thinking it through, Han Fei sat cross-legged. Break. Hum. The spiritual spring was surging, and tremendous spiritual energy was poured into Han Fei's body crazily. There was no telling if it was because his foundation as a hanging fissure was too solid. Han Fei's breakthrough was very smooth. Although the crazily pouring spiritual energy was extremely thick, it didn't feel obscure in his mutated veins at all. After only half an hour, Han Fei suddenly felt that his 6 senses were unlocked. Invisibly, there seemed to be an inexplicable force drilling into his body. At that moment, Han Fei felt that his strength was soaring. Sticky impurities were being expelled from his body, and his head was unusually clear. It was also at that moment that Han Fei seemed to see a road, but it was blurry and illusory. However, Han Fei vaguely realized something. A hidden fisher seemed to be looking for a path and establishing a path. He wondered if this path was his own path. But Han Fei felt that he seemed to have grasped something, but he didn't fully understand it. The breakthrough, as always, was still progressing. The spiritual energy didn't stop. It came one wave after another. After another hour, the infusion of spiritual energy finally stopped. Han Fei opened his eyes, opened his mouth, and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. Is this the power of a hidden fisher? Han Fei got up and silently sensed his current status. In terms of pure strength, he felt that it had increased by more than 50%. At this moment, Han Fei somehow thought of Wang Dashuai's big green door. From the looks of it, it was not a big deal to go against the big green door again. Hiss. So exaggerated? It was definitely more than 2 million Jin. No, that's not right. Carrying the Great Verdant Gate is no longer an issue. Han Fei was shocked to discover that his strength would increase so much after he became a hidden fisher. Right now, he even suspected that his strength might have directly doubled. What did that mean? Punching out nearly 1,000 tons? Han Fei quickly checked his own information. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 51, Junior Hidden Fisher, Spiritual Energy. 506-2236-23886, Willpower. 3001 Perception. 29999 meters Spiritual Heritage. Level 7, Low-Quality Spiritual Beast. Twin Yin-Yang Spirit Swallowing Fish, Level 45, Main Art. Divine Manipulation Technique. Level 5 of Void Fishing, Heaven Level, Divine Quality. Hiss. Han Fei was stunned and rubbed his eyes in surprise. His upper limit of spiritual energy had increased by nearly 4,000 points. He didn't expect this number at all. On the other hand, he was only level 51. In other words, he had stabilized his realm of level 50 and jumped up again. And just like that, the upper limit of his spiritual energy had increased so much? Gulp. Han Fei swallowed hard. No wonder it said that every step after becoming a hanging fisher is like stepping into the sky. In this case, it's not so exaggerated that my strength has increased so much. I've advanced by a small level, which is almost the same as when I was a hanging fisher. Han Fei was overjoyed. However, he didn't get carried away by the surprise. With a flip of his hand, he took out 27 level 2 soul crystals. Although it wasn't a lot, it could at least improve his spiritual power and perception. Half an hour later, when Han Fei's spiritual power was increased to 3,168 meters and his perception range was increased to 31,999 meters, he stopped. At this point, Han Fei had used up all the level 2 soul crystals in his hands. He couldn't help but sigh that he was really poor. Compared to hunting the wind sky wing hero souls, Han Fei had something more important to do at this moment. The array of the Soul Sea secret technique popped up in his head, and he tried to enter the Soul Sea again. 100 seconds passed. Huh? I can't get in? Are you serious? Are you kidding me? Isn't it said that I can enter the Soul Sea when I make a major breakthrough? Isn't my breakthrough into a hidden fisher a major breakthrough? No, I have to try again. Another 100 seconds passed. Han Fei heaved a long sigh. Sure enough, it was exactly like what Old Man Shu Shan had said. This was also a coincidence. He couldn't enter the Soul Sea. Han Fei then looked at the pile of bones. He had noticed it earlier. Everything could be corroded in the Desolation Graveyard, including semi-divine weapons. Then why were the bones still there? If the bones weren't corroded, wouldn't he be able to walk in the Desolation Graveyard if he crafted a bone suit with the bones? Immediately, Han Fei summoned the Demon Purification Pot. He simply threw dozens of bones into the Demon Purification Pot and imagined the battle suit in his head. However, before he had a chance to figure it out, a white crystal the size of a thumb flew out after a large amount of spiritual energy was consumed. However, a piece of information popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Name Essence of Wind Introduction. It's made of the bones of the wind sky wing and contains the desolation gale. It's one of the materials that can be used to craft divine weapons. Huh? A material? Han Fei was speechless. There were dozens of bones, but they were only so small? However, when Han Fei saw that the essence of wind could be used to craft divine weapons, he took a deep breath and exclaimed, "A material for divine weapons?" Han Fei couldn't help but recall the bones that almost covered the entire desolation graveyard. He was immediately excited. "I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be rich." Who could have thought that they were everywhere in the desolation graveyard? Han Fei couldn't help but have mixed feelings. If his guess was correct, someone must have guessed that the bones could be used to craft a battlesuit that could resist the desolation gale. However, Han Fei was almost certain that they couldn't succeed. He had refined dozens of bones and only managed to refine such a small amount. To refine the essence of wind the size of an adult's fist, hundreds if not thousands of bones would be needed. Who could have thought that ultra-quality materials were so rare? However, what Han Fei needed to do was not to refine them crazily, but to see how much spiritual energy it would cost to refine them. This time, Han Fei planned to refine them with his reserve spiritual energy. This time, Han Fei threw 100 bones into the demon purification pot at once. Around 50 breaths later, a crystal that was slightly larger than the wind essence from before flew out. Han Fei looked at his reserve spiritual energy and slightly frowned. "I've consumed more than 440,000 points of spiritual energy. That's as much as the spiritual energy needed to forge an ultra-quality spiritual weapon." However, Han Fei wasn't panicked at all. He had made a lot of money by catching wind sky wings for Chao Qiu and the others. He didn't care about anything else for now. He wanted to refine the wind essence in his two fists first. A moment later, 8 million points of spiritual energy were consumed, and 2 fist-sized pieces of essence of wind appeared before his eyes. Han Fei's face immediately became gloomy. It wasn't enough to craft a divine battle suit at all. At such a rate, he would need at least 80 million points of spiritual energy, which was probably enough to craft a battle suit. Immediately, Han Fei summoned his golden battle suit and gritted his teeth. Refine. He spent another 8 million points of spiritual energy to refine the essence of wind that was the size of 2 fists. Han Fei did a quick calculation and found that it should be enough to be melted into a golden battle suit. After all, it was a battle suit, not a battle armor, and it wasn't as extravagant as Chao Qiu and the others. Cutting off the connection with the golden battlesuit, Han Fei threw the golden battlesuit and 4 fist-sized pieces of essence of wind and 2 thumb-sized pieces of essence of wind into the demon purification pot. A moment later, more than 8 million points of spiritual energy were consumed, which reduced his storage of 150 million points of spiritual energy to 110 million points. Of course, to Han Fei's delight, a brand new battlesuit appeared in front of his eyes. The golden luster faintly receded and was replaced by a green luster with a hint of yellow. The whole battlesuit included shoes, a half-armor, a latticed inner armor, and an open windbreaker. The cuffs and the belt were inlaid with gold buckles and the collar was high. It was very modern. Information popped up in his eyes. Name Feather Suit of Wind Introduction. It's made of a golden battle suit and the essence of wind. It weighs 10,000 kilograms, is extremely flexible, and has a high defense ability. Its resistance to gales is 50% higher than that of regular low-quality divine battle suit. It has no obvious flaws. Quality low-quality divine weapon, attached soul non-recastable, unrefined. A note. Due to limited materials, it can only be forged into a low-tier battlesuit at most. Han Fei grinned. It's worth it. A low-grade divine weapon was worth it. Divine armament and semi-divine armament were only half a word apart. However, the quality was definitely incomparable. The feather coat of wind hadn't sealed a spirit yet. When he went out, it would be best if he could catch another creature to possess. This way, the robe of wind might become a medium-tier heavenly weapon. Of course, the first thing to do now was to refine the feather cloak of wind. Han Fei didn't dare to recognize a high-quality divine weapon as its master. Otherwise, 90% of his essence blood would be sucked away. Back then, when he had forcibly refined Snowmorn, he would have sucked 10 of himself dry if he hadn't used up a lot of his reserves to produce blood. Rip! Han Fei made a cut on his palm and pressed it on the feather suit of wind. In an instant, the blood in his body surged and gathered crazily in his palm. In just 20 breaths of time, 10% of the blood was gone. 50 breaths later, 30% of the blood was gone. 100 breaths later, 50% of the blood was gone. Han Fei had already swallowed the spiritual fruit in his mouth 50 breaths later. At the same time, he cast the divine healing technique on himself. After 50% of his essence blood was sucked away, his blood finally stopped flowing. With a thought, Han Fei put on the feather suit of wind. Perfect. The 5th chapter. I need monthly votes. All the chapters are more than 3,000 words. It's not too much to ask for monthly votes. The Wind Sky Wings will be released one day later than expected. It will be revealed tomorrow. Thank you for your support. End of this chapter. Chapter 845. It took Han Fei 6 hours to cultivate, craft the feather suit of wind, and eat spiritual fruits to recover his lost essence and blood. With a thought, Han Fei had already appeared in the Desolation Graveyard. It was just as Han Fei expected. The Wind Sky Wings that chased him earlier were gone. However, there were still 2 Wind Sky Wings that were very close to him. Obviously, the 2 Wind Sky Wings had spotted Han Fei the moment he showed up. However, Han Fei simply waved the fish skin in his hand and enshrouded himself in a maze. At the same time, he cast a concealment array and a stealth array on himself. Walala! The void chains enshrouded the whole area. The 2 Wind Sky Wings weren't scared of Han Fei, they were just habitually timid. Seeing that they were tied up, they tried to run away. Immediately, the wind blades slashed at the void chains. Han Fei dared not let them slash at the void chains. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp was only level 41. The gap between him and those creatures was too huge. Even the legendary quality couldn't make up for the gap in levels. However, the time was enough. He extended the void lines and caught the wing of one of the Wind Sky Wings. The Wind Sky Wing Hero Soul paused when it was caught by one of the void lines, which caused it to be caught by the remaining 8 void lines. Immediately, Han Fei sensed resistance. However, in terms of soul power, Han Fei was as good as them. Therefore, the Wind Sky Wing struggled and only flew 10 kilometers away before it was completely controlled by Han Fei. Hey! That's more like it. You should look like you've improved when you're stronger. Controlling the Wind Sky Wing Hero Soul to fly back, Han Fei climbed on it again. This time, the feather suit of wind on his body had not only turned from a semi-divine weapon into a real divine weapon, but it also had the ability to resist the wind. It was no longer emitting a sizzling sound. Han Fei waved his hand and collected all the bones nearby into Forge the Universe. Then, he controlled the Wind Sky Wing to swim deeper. Han Fei didn't pick up a lot of bones immediately, because it wasn't the right time to do that. If more and more Wind Sky Wing Hero Souls were alarmed, would he be able to find the God Sealing Pearl? Therefore, when he was in a hurry, he didn't panic. This time, the effect was much better than the previous one. First of all, the Wind Sky Wing that Han Fei controlled had a wingspan of 10 meters. It was a level 55 heroic soul. Secondly, since he was silent, the Wind Sky Wings weren't curious anymore. After flying for about 800 kilometers, Han Fei felt that he was in good condition. Apart from the coldness, he also saw many Wind Sky Wing Hero Souls whose wingspans were 12 meters. Han Fei was flying. All of a sudden, he sensed danger, only to see that a Wind Sky Wing Hero Soul with a wingspan of 13 meters was flying close. Exposed? No, it's not coming for me, but for the wind sky wing below me. Han Fei immediately controlled the wind sky wings to fly to an area where there were no wind sky wing hero souls. Sensing that the gale sky wing was chasing after him, Han Fei calmly told the wind sky wing to not resist. Chilla. When the gale sky wing's wind blades were about to swallow the wind sky wing that he controlled, the void lines hung on the gale sky wing from 20 meters away. After that, the powerful wind sky wing hero soul let out a cry and flew away. Han Fei, on the other hand, didn't move at all. It's fine. Get out of the range of my void lines first. You'll be lucky if you can get out. 30 seconds later, Han Fei controlled the wind sky wing to return and jumped on it. Han Fei secretly had mixed feelings. He didn't know when he was bold enough to fight a level 58 wind sky wing hero soul. The breakthrough had truly given him confidence. Han Fei roughly estimated that he must have been 7,000 kilometers away since he entered the Desolation Graveyard. He was 2,000 kilometers away from the Desolation Graveyard. However, where was the wind sky wing big shot that they talked about? The big shot with the wind god pearl on its head. Come out. If you go any further, I won't be able to defeat you. After flying for another 500 kilometers, Han Fei found that a few wind sky wings with wingspans of 13 or even 14 meters were fighting each other. As a sneak, Han Fei chose to skim from the sky. However, a moment later, he found that many wind sky wings were fighting. Oh my god, they're all big shots. The big shots can't see me. The big shots can't see me. After flying for another 300 kilometers stealthily, Han Fei was finally seen by the big shots. A powerful wind sky wing lunged at Han Fei. Han Fei glanced at it, only to find that it was almost level 60 with a wingspan of 15 meters. He wanted to change for a stronger one, but he couldn't stand two of them at the same time. Damn it. Just one was enough. Why would there be two? I'll run. Another chase began in an instant. Then, streaks of light chased after him. Han Fei turned on the fighter mode again. Do I have to hide and forge the universe again? No. Han Fei quickly took out a peppermint and put it in his mouth. His head was immediately clear. There was no time. This place was no longer the same place as before. The wind sky wings here wouldn't give him a chance to hide and forge the universe. Immediately, Han Fei split off two void lines and cast them at the two wind sky wing hero souls that were closest to him. As if sensing the danger, the two wind sky wings were dodging as fast as shadows. Fortunately, it bought Han Fei an opportunity. However, he vaguely sensed that the wind sky wing below him seemed to be resisting too. Resist? Fly. Han Fei thought of something. It seemed that 3 void lines weren't enough. He had to refine a few more dragon veins. After chasing for about 100 kilometers, Han Fei suddenly found that the wind sky wing hero souls behind him slowed down. After only 1 minute, the wind sky wings behind him stopped chasing. You scared me to death. Shoot. Wait. Why aren't there any wind sky wing hero souls here? Han Fei's eyelids cramped. There was only one possibility for such a situation to occur. He had entered the sphere of influence of an even stronger big shot. Han Fei had no time to think. He couldn't lose the wind sky wing below him. Chances were that he would have to rely on it to escape. However, Han Fei was afraid that he couldn't defeat the big shot that he was about to meet. Immediately, he extracted his remaining 6 dragon veins and refined them on the spot. Although Han Fei could even divide a void line into 10 strands, the void line was too small. But that had to take into consideration the endurance of each one. Even though he had become a hidden fisher, his soul was still too strong, and refining the dragon veins would consume his soul. If he didn't have to pay any price, he would have refined the dragon veins a long time ago. But at this moment, Han Fei couldn't care less. 3 or 4 void lines wouldn't be enough. Controlling the wind sky wing hero souls, Han Fei calmed down and began to refine them. 1, 2. When Han Fei was about to refine the third one, he saw two streaks of light darting at him. Shoot! He quickly controlled the wind sky wing to dodge them. When Han Fei raised his head again, he discovered, to his horror, that a wind sky wing hero soul with a wingspan of 18 meters was swooping at him. The wind sky wing hero soul didn't have white wings anymore, but wings that looked like jade. They were transparent and attractive. There was a green pearl at the center of the wind sky wing hero soul's head. A wind god pearl? Han Fei shivered all over, and a weird desolation gale blew down. At this moment, Han Fei heard sizzling noises again. Han Fei was rather horrified. Could a low-quality divine weapon resist the attack of a level 63 big shot? He didn't know. However, judging from the current situation, he had obviously been exposed. The big shot's target was him, not the wind sky wing below him. Han Fei took a deep breath. F*CKU. Let's go. I'm going to F*CKU up. At this moment, he activated the Overlord's technique. Attached to Little Fatty, Han Fei controlled the wind sky wing crazily and lunged at the enormous wind sky wing. Hula! The big boss flapped its wings and shot out wind blades one after another. Han Fei tensed up and quickly dodged, narrowing the distance between him and the big shot. A lot of thoughts popped up in Han Fei's head. As long as you're close, as long as you're controlled by my void lines, I'll fight you to the end. In the next second, when the wind blades formed a net, Han Fei shrieked and launched a fist mark of the Chow family. Almost at the same time, Han Fei opened the seal of the soul attraction pill with his left hand. In an instant, the fragrance of pills spread in the raging wind. Come on. Do you want it? If you do, come at me. Chilla. The fist mark of the Chow family was cut into pieces, but the wind blades didn't stop. After all, the fist mark of the Chow family was only equal to the attack of a peak-level hidden fisher. The big shot with a wingspan of 18 meters, on the other hand, was even more powerful than a hidden fisher. Gotcha! Another fist imprint of the Chow family was crushed and blasted out. Han Fei hurriedly controlled the 15 void lines to hook the big boss on the opposite side. However, how fast was the wind sky wing hero soul at the sea spirit level? The big shot didn't fall for it at all. Chilla! Han Fei suddenly leaped away. Two of the wind sky wings below him had been cut into countless pieces and disappeared. Han Fei waved his hand and threw out a fish skin map. It was so blinding that nobody within 1,000 meters could open their eyes. Mujiar, I'm sorry. I can always trade the essence of wind for the soul attraction pill later. I'll use the soul attraction pill. At that moment, Han Fei hooked the soul attraction pill with a void line and threw it into the sky. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 846. At the moment when he threw out the soul attraction pill, he also threw out a fist mark of the Chow family. He had to use it when it was time to save his life. As long as he could catch the big guy up there, not just the 3 fist marks of the Chow family, he could even use the ones from the Guan family and the Mu family. In the wind, Han Fei was attached to Little Gold. I can fly too. Although I can't fly as steadily as you in this environment, I have legendary wings after all. However, for the sake of the show, Han Fei turned around and ran, stretching the void lines. Eat. Hurry up and eat. Suddenly, Han Fei felt that his soul shivered, and the void lines caught him. Han Fei was overjoyed. In the blink of an eye, he turned around and flew away. The void lines that caught the wind sky wing big shot split into 3, and the other void lines followed them like maggots on a bone. However, the wind sky wing big shot seemed to have sensed great danger. It rose and blinked 100 meters away, trying to escape. Damn it, there's a flash skill? But do you think that's enough? The moment the wind sky wing big shot flew away, Han Fei stopped and took out a longbow. At that moment, all the spiritual energy in Han Fei's body was absorbed, and 25,600 points of spiritual energy were gathered on the arrow. The 8th arrow of the War Soul art burst out at this moment. Han Fei, on the other hand, managed to resist the arrow without breaking his arm. This fully showed how correct his choice to become a hidden fisher was this time. If it were before, his entire arm would have been torn apart and bleeding. The war soul art was a lock-on technique. However, lock-on techniques didn't necessarily work in the Gales. After all, the enemy was a level 63 heroic soul. If it weren't caught by the void lines, it would have been easy for it to shatter Han Fei's arrow. However, the Wind Sky Wing Big Shot was caught by the void lines, and it had two choices. One was to pause for a moment and break Han Fei's arrow. The other was to simply run away and ignore the arrow. However, the battle soul cultivation technique meant that each arrow was stronger than the previous one, especially the last few arrows, which injured the spiritual soul. The Wind Sky Wing Hero Soul, on the other hand, was a soul in the first place. Therefore, if he were to take this arrow head-on, the lethality would still be great. Sure enough, just as Han Fei expected, the guy paused for a moment and flapped his wings wildly. 4 wind blades swept toward the spiritual energy arrows. Han Fei grinned. It's done. At this moment, the second void line caught the Wind Sky Wing Hero Soul again. The third one followed closely behind and hit the target again. With a telepathic thought, the void lines split into 9 and hooked onto the Wind Sky Wing's head. 4 wings, tail, neck, back. For a moment, Han Fei felt stinging pain in his head. That was the other party's strong resistance. While flying to the Wind Sky Wing, Han Fei competed for control with the Wind Sky Wing. As expected, 3 complete void lines were still unable to control this big shot. At that moment, Han Fei soared into the sky and chased after it in the raging wind. If he was given another chance to shoot, or if he was given a chance to catch it with a 4th void line, he felt that he could defeat this big guy. 1 fish and 1 man, 1 in front and 1 behind, 1 above and 1 below, began a chase, swift as light and shadow. Han Fei tried to maintain the fastest speed, hoping that the B***starred couldn't escape from him within 300 kilometers. At this moment, the Wind Sky Wing Big Shot was almost 100 kilometers away from him. Han Fei cursed aloud. He really needed to improve his damn speed. You want to run away when you're hooked? Soul-splitting technique. Han Fei roared. Outside the Wind Sky Canyon, Chao Qiu, Guan Qinyan, and Mu Jie were waiting hundreds of kilometers away. Holding her chin, Mu Jie asked, "How big do you think Han Fei can catch? Could it be a 14-meter one or a 15-meter one?" Guan Qinyan said casually, "It's hard to say. With Brother Han's extraordinary abilities, it's possible that he can tame a 15-meter Wind Sky Wing." Chao Qiu smacked his lips and said, "Why can't it be the Wind God Pearl? Han Fei was a very strange person. No place he's been to is good." Mu Jie curled her lips. Wind God Pearl. It was said that it only appeared in the depths of the Desolation Graveyard. Moreover, there were very few of them. Perhaps there were only a few in the entire Wind Sky Canyon. The last person who obtained the Wind God Pearl was over 60 years ago. Suddenly, Mu Jie suddenly grabbed Chao Qiu and said, "Look, Sister Mo." Chao Qiu snorted. "What's there to be surprised about? She couldn't have entered the Desolation Graveyard after being taught a lesson by Han Fei. Besides, I'm not bragging, but what can she do even if she enters the Desolation Graveyard? Can she defeat so many Wind Sky Wing hero souls?" Mo Fian saw Chao Qiu and the others from a distance and asked via voice transmission, "Where is Han Fei?" Chao Qiu snorted. "I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he's trying to snatch the Wind God Pearl." Mo Fian sneered disdainfully. "He dares to rob the Wind God Pearl? I'll wait for him here. I'll settle the score with him." "Who do you want to settle the score with?" Right when Chao Qiu and Mu Jie were about to refute, a soft but firm voice echoed in everybody's head. He saw a woman in a white dress walking on the wind in the void. Her fluttering long hair and her fluttering clothes blossomed in the wind, making her look like a fairy who had just descended from the sky. Mu Jiar asked in surprise. Without wings, is she a law enforcer or an explorer? Huh. Jior? Guan Qingyin's face was cold. It's her? Juin Ling has become a law enforcer? Chao Chiu was surprised for a long time too. Then he waved his hand. Little Nine, Juin Ling nodded at Chao Chiu gently and then looked at Mo Fian casually. What do you want to settle with Han Fei for? Mo Fian's pupils constricted. You've become a law enforcer? Mo Fian and the rest of them were shocked. She knew that Juin Ling's cultivation was fast, but how could it be so fast? How old was she? She was already a law enforcer? But Mo Fian still said stubbornly, that's between me and Han Fei. What does it have to do with you? Juin Ling stepped down and finally stood on the wave. Her face was still gentle and tranquil as she said softly, his business is my business. Clang. Huh! What do you mean? Chao Chiu and the other two widened their eyes and mouths. What did she mean? Mu Jiar screamed, Little Jiu, don't tell me you like Han Fei? The corners of Guan Qingyin's mouth were also trembling. This, how absurd! Chao Chiu sat down on the boat. My God, my sea god. Little Nine, did you choose Han Fei for your comfort technique? Mo Fian was also shocked. She opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. She couldn't imagine how Han Fei and Juin Ling, who belonged to two different worlds, got together. According to Juin Ling's personality, the last thing she would choose was Han Fei. How could this be? Juin Ling said gently, he is very special. I became a law enforcer because of him. They all took a deep breath, feeling that their brains were about to turn to mush. Far away, several 8-star experts flew close and looked at Juin Ling in surprise. You've become a law enforcer? Someone laughed aloud. As expected of a once-in-a-thousand-year heavenly talent. You've become a law enforcer so quickly. Chances are that you can become an explorer before you're 20. Someone nodded. Yes. Even if you can't become a law enforcer before you're 20, you'll become a law enforcer at 25. Juin Ling smiled and said, You flatter me, seniors. Thank you for your compliment. Someone shook his head with a smile. What do you mean by that? I've never seen anyone make breakthroughs so fast. It's so fast that it's astounding. While they were laughing and discussing, all of a sudden, 2 streaks of light soared into space from the distant sky. They were real lights. One was green and the other was gold and red. Someone asked in surprise, What's that? Someone shook his head. It's too far away for me to see clearly. Has a powerful wind sky wing been born? Someone laughed and scolded, Nonsense! The two are chasing each other. They're obviously hunting each other. Mu Jiar asked in surprise, What's that? That light is so beautiful. Chao Chiu snorted. Anyway, we already have wings. It's none of our business. The battle is so fierce. It must be dangerous. Everybody looked up at the sky. The 2 streaks of light were traveling in the violent vortex of desolation gale and couldn't be seen clearly. Suddenly, a streak of spiritual energy darted out. Someone seemed to be shouting, but the wind was roaring and they couldn't hear it at all. They vaguely heard the word grandson. Han Fei finally shot out the second arrow. He summoned Little White and Little Black and tossed Little White into Forge the Universe. In such a way, Little Black would survive whether he died or not. Boosted by the desolation gale, the 2 of them were extremely fast. They couldn't be described as flying at all. They were like shadows of light. When Han Fei forcibly gained control of the Wind Sky Wing's body, he finally had a chance to bite this B***starred. It was exactly because of this opportunity that Han Fei had the chance to shoot out the second arrow. Hey, grandson, you've eaten my 4th hook. When the 4th void line caught the Wind Sky Wing, Han Fei immediately gained the upper hand. During the rush, Han Fei had already stuffed the 26th spiritual fruit into his mouth. If it weren't for his energy, he wouldn't have been able to catch up to this point. Grandson, get out of the desolation gale. Han Fei had gone through a lot of trouble to control the Wind Sky Wing Hero Soul to the edge of the Desolation Gale. As long as it was out of the Desolation Gale, it wouldn't be so fast, and he would have a chance. Bam! Bam! 2 figures darted out of the Desolation Gale one after the other. Han Fei was overjoyed after he got out of the Desolation Gale. The 5th void line was finally caught. Immediately, the 5 void lines turned into 15 lines and latched onto the Wind Sky Wing. As if knowing that it was in great danger, the Wind Sky Wing seized its last chance and lunged at Han Fei. In the blink of an eye, dozens of wind blades and violent desolation gale were spurted at Han Fei. Gotcha! Gotcha! A sledgehammer appeared in the void. Clang! Clang! Down below, Guan Qinyan rose quickly. That's, Mu Jie already shrieked. It's Han Fei, that liar. He's using the Guan family's hammer. Mo Fian shivered. Han Fei? How is it possible? Jiuyin Ling opened her mouth in surprise. Han Fei? Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 847. When Han Fei broke through the desolation gale, the people who had been sitting cross-legged at the bottom of the sea saw it too, and raised their heads in shock. Someone exclaimed, "What's that?" Someone asked in confusion, "It seems to be a Wind Sky Wing." "Oh my God, isn't the Wind Sky Wing too huge? Its wingspan is 18 meters. Someone rose and pointed at the sky. "Look, there seems to be a Wind Sky Wing chasing it. However, why are the Wind Sky Wings behind it golden, and their wingspans are only 6 meters? Someone cursed, "Are you blind? That's not a Wind Sky Wing at all. It's a human being." Hiss! The group of people cried out in alarm. This news really stimulated their brain nerve. Immediately, someone roared, "Someone is hunting the Wind Sky Wing King. Let's go and take a look." "I'm coming too. I'm coming too." Han Fei was approaching the Wind Sky Wing quickly. He cast out the void lines and hooked the dragon's sting rod. It was because the Wind Sky Wing's soul had been controlled and was merely struggling. Therefore, its speed plummeted at this moment, which gave Han Fei a chance to catch it. Up in the sky, 2 giant hammer phantoms hammered down, creating vibrating golden ripples in the air, barely blocking the dozens of wind blades. Han Fei finally turned around and landed on the Wind Sky Wing that was coming at him. At that moment, information popped up in his eyes. Name Wind Sky Wing Soul King Introduction, a rare king of immortal hero souls in the domain of wind. It can't return when it was alive and dies by itself. It lives and dies for the wind. Because it doesn't allow other creatures to destroy its resting place, it turns into a soul. The Wind Sky Wing hero souls retain part of their will when they were alive. They are timid, curious, fond of flying, and fond of bullying creatures that are weaker than them. When their 4 wings are opened, they can raise wind blades and spew out desolation gale. Level 63 quality, undead spiritual energy greater than 50,002 points, collectible undead aura, Wind God Pearl, unabsorbable. Note: the Wind God Pearl must be taken within 100 seconds after it is taken off. Remark 2: this Wind God Pearl is like an illusion and looks like colored glass. Han Fei took a deep breath. King-level creatures were truly tricky to deal with. However, the Wind God Pearl was about to fall into his hands. In a few hundred breaths' time, he would be able to subdue it. At this moment, Han Fei felt lucky that the Wind Sky Wings were timid creatures. Even though he had become a Soul King, he was still timid. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had the chance to subdue a level 63 undead creature. In a sense, this was a creature at the level of a law enforcer. Suddenly, Han Fei glanced down. Many people were rising into the air, and many were floating on the sea. Chao Qiu and the others haven't left yet. Is Mo Fian still there? Just when Han Fei felt that he couldn't take off the Wind God Pearl here, he glanced out of the corner of his eye and saw someone standing on the surface of the sea. Why is Jiuyin Ling here too? However, he couldn't care less now. The Wind Sky Wing Soul King was struggling. Han Fei dashed around in the sky. One moment, he broke through the clouds, the next moment, he dove into the sea, and the next moment, he went straight down, and the next moment, he soared up. That feeling was so much better than flying a fighter jet. Han Fei was bleeding from his facial orifices, which were the wounds he suffered when he fought for control with the wind sky wing. However, the minor wounds weren't enough to hurt Han Fei. Victory was already in sight. What was the big deal about a minor wound? Grandson, calm down. Do you believe that Grandpa will seal your spirit? Han Fei suddenly thought of something. That's right. Even if he took off the Wind God Pearl, wouldn't the Wind Sky Wing Soul King still be the king of the Wind Sky Wings without wings? Could he use it to seal a spirit? Finally, was the Wind Sky Wings consciousness blurred? At this moment, it suddenly lowered its head and dove into the sea at an unbelievable speed. Shoot! Are you trying to kill me? Bam! The light and shadow crashed into the sea, raising a surging tide. Han Fei felt that his internal organs were rolling. The moment it entered the sea, Han Fei felt that he had almost gained control of the Wind Sky Wing. Right when Han Fei was about to control the Wind Sky Wing to escape into the wind, he suddenly heard a voice transmission. You absorb it here. I'll protect you. Han Fei scanned with his senses, only to find that Jiuyin Ling was already within 50 kilometers of him at some point. He thought for a moment and realized that he had wasted some time. He was told that the sooner he swallowed the wind pearl after he became a hidden fisher, the better. It would take him some time to escape into the wind and find a place where nobody was around. Now that he had a law enforcer to protect him, what was there to worry about? He might as well do it now. Han Fei grabbed the Wind God Pearl at the center of the Wind Sky Wing's eyebrows and stuffed it into his mouth, without any hesitation. The moment it touched the Wind God Pearl, the Wind Sky Wing Soul King dispersed and disappeared. It was a pity that Han Fei intended to store it in the demon purification pot. After the Wind God Pearl entered his body, Han Fei felt that an intense wind was rising inside his body. The violent power seemed to be tearing his flesh apart. However, Han Fei's physique was unparalleled. Especially after Han Fei broke through to become a hidden fisher, he had become stronger. Therefore, he held back his twisted face and waited for the Wind God Pearl to be digested. At that moment, Han Fei stood proudly in the seawater, and Little Gold and Little Fatty returned to his body. Something seemed to be trying to crawl out of his back. The fiery pain was trying to grow from his back. Chilla! Han Fei felt that his skin was torn apart, and something was growing quickly, as if it were part of his body. Many people gathered around Han Fei. It was the Wind God Pearl. How could they not come when they saw someone absorb the Wind God Pearl with their own eyes? However, Jiuyin Ling said casually, nobody is allowed to be within 50 kilometers of him. Chao Chiu said anxiously, Xiao Jiu, our perception range isn't that large. Mu Jiar nodded quickly. Jiuer, let me go. I want to see if the liar absorbed the Wind God Pearl or not. However, seeing Chao Chiu and Mu Jiar trying to sneak forward, Jiuyin Ling pointed her finger. Seal! The two of them paused and looked back at Jiuyin Ling bitterly. Jiuyin Ling said casually, it's the Wind God Pearl. With that, Jiuyin Ling pointed at an invisible water vein underwater and shattered it. Then, she glanced at Emofian and said, there won't be a next time. Emofian's face turned ugly. She snorted and chose to leave. At this moment, she also realized that Jiuyin Ling had really taken a fancy to this damn Han Fei. Now, as long as it wasn't a law enforcer, no one could interfere with Han Fei's absorption of the Wind God Pearl. Why didn't she leave? Was she waiting for Han Fei to finish absorbing the Wind God Pearl and then come for her? Damn it, Han Fei. You bastard, I'll slap you to death sooner or later. Emofian left. The others were restrained by Jiuyin Ling and could only wait for Han Fei to come out of the seawater. Among the people present, there were only 2 law enforcers like Jiuyin Ling and 2 8-star cultivators with strong mental power. These 8-star cultivators were peak-level hidden fishers, but they were just patrollers here. They could perceive the scene of Han Fei's breakthrough. At this moment, a pair of white wings stretched out from Han Fei's back. It was a pair of illusory, glass-like wings that were faintly discernible in the air. At this moment, this pair of wings was slowly extending. Moreover, this pair of glass wings seemed to be breathing like a human, flickering and flickering, which was very strange. A faint smile appeared on Zhou Ling's face. Looking at the wings that were getting bigger and bigger, she couldn't help but exclaim in her heart, "It turns out that he's so powerful." The expressions of the others also changed. A law enforcer exclaimed, "It's really amazing. The characteristics of this wind god pearl are very special." Another law enforcer nodded. "Yes, I remember that the last wind god pearl was a feather of fire, right? It contained the power of wind and fire, but I wonder what the characteristics of this wind god pearl are?" The eyes of the two 8-star cultivators were full of envy. Those who could get the wind god pearl were all heavenly talents since ancient times. They were all heavenly talents among heavenly talents, and they had to be blessed with opportunities and luck. Obviously, Han Fei was such a person. One of them still remembered that he told Han Fei about the rules of the Wind Sky Canyon. He didn't expect to meet him again so soon. He didn't expect that Han Fei would be able to get the wind god pearl. Outside, the group of people was restless and impatient. Mu Jie had already run to Zhou Ling. "Xiaojiu, what is it? What is it? Is it the feather of wind and fire?" Zhou Ling shook her head slightly. "No, I don't know it." Mu Jie asked eagerly, "Then what is it?" Bam! Just when Mu Jie was asking, the surface of the water suddenly exploded, and waves splashed, and the huge wings that were as clear as glass broke out of the water. They were followed by more than 10 shadows, which looked a bit like Xia Xiaochan's shadow follower. As Han Fei stood still, the dozens of shadows disappeared into Han Fei's body one after another. "Wow!" Mu Jie clasped her hands in front of her chest, her eyes full of stars. "What beautiful wings!" Chao Qiu also exclaimed, "Oh my God! It's really 18 meters. Han Fei, how did you do it?" Someone exclaimed, "What wings are those? They're not feather of wind and fire." Someone was shocked. "Son of AB*TCH, they're too beautiful." A law enforcer said casually, "Don't be surprised, everyone. The wind god pearl from more than 60 years ago was feather of wind and fire. It doesn't mean that all the wind god pearls are feather of wind and fire. For example, the wind god pearl from 100 years ago was the cloud water divine wings." The law enforcer said to Han Fei, right? What's the name of your wings? What are their features? You can show it to everyone, and you can also motivate everyone here. Han Fei was stunned. "I don't know." The man laughed and said, "That's simple. It's part of your body now. You just need to feel it carefully and you'll know its features." Han Fei glanced at the wings, and information popped up in his eyes. Name Phantom Glass Wings. Introduction. This is one of the special features of the Wind God Pearl. It's acquired from a Wind Sky Wing Soul King. It can be improved as your level increases. It can double your speed and control the agility of the wind. As it moved, it was like a shadow following the body, dreamy and illusory, possessing the power to pierce through space. Combat Technique 1 Void Phantom. You can travel through the void within 100 meters without any limit and leave 9 shadows at the same time. Combat Technique 2 Agility of Wind. You can increase your speed by 3 times as long as your spiritual energy is not exhausted. Combat Technique 3 Wind Blade. You can slash out 2 gusts of desolation gales and absorb the wind power later. Note, the power of the phantom glass wings will grow with the growth of the owner until he becomes an explorer. The third chapter. Asking for votes. The wings are here. Asking for monthly votes. 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 Ouch. Ouch. End of this chapter. Chapter 848. Han Fei was dumbfounded when he saw the information. Damn it. Can wings be so powerful? Each and every one of them had a pair of wings that carried a battle technique. Furthermore, each and every one of them looked extremely powerful. Good. Han Fei swallowed, and with a thought, he appeared 100 meters away. He didn't know what he did at that moment. With a thought, Han Fei went over. God knew how he came over. When Han Fei looked back, he found that there was still a copy of himself in the place where he was just now. Han Fei felt that he could control the blurred shadow. However, he didn't do that. He simply let others see it as a blurred shadow. Hula! As he spread his wings, the transparent green shadow flapped. With a swoosh, he soared into the sky. It's almost as fast as Little Gold? Han Fei discovered this in an instant. Ever since he had Little Gold, he had flown more than once or twice. Although he didn't break out his fastest speed, he estimated that he was only as fast as Little Gold if he didn't use the agility of wind and fully activated the phantom glass wings. However, once he used the agility of wind, his top speed was about 3 times faster than Little Gold's. However, it did make sense. This was a level 63 wind skywing, and Little Gold was only level 41. If Little Gold could also grow to level 63, the phantom glass wings wouldn't be as fast as it was. However, if Little Gold grew to level 63, it wouldn't be easy. After all, Han Fei had seen how difficult it was to raise a legendary creature, but he had to have enough spirit awakening fluid to raise it. Han Fei tried to see if he could share it with Little Gold, only to find that he could only use one of the 2 wings, which made Han Fei feel regretful. As for the wind blades, he flapped his wings. 2 wind blades visible to the naked eye slashed out, emitting a misty azure light. Shwa! Shwa! The moment the wind blades were launched, Han Fei flashed away twice in a row and blocked the 2 wind blades, leaving 2 blurred shadows in midair. Boom! 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 2 consecutive golden fist prints smashed the 2 wind blades into smithereens. However, he did not manage to block it completely. There was still a sliver of his strength left. However, Han Fei felt that he could easily resist that power with his body. Phew! He wasn't ridiculously strong. However, this wind blade is not weak. It should become stronger as I grow. But in any case, Han Fei was satisfied. He couldn't expect all of his combat skills to be as powerful as the invincible fist seal. To be able to withstand 2 punches, it was already quite impressive. On the surface of the sea, cries of alarm could be heard. With a thought, the shadows in the sky disappeared. It was enough for him to know the secret of the 9 afterimages. Agility of the wind had to be kept a secret. As for the wind blades, it didn't matter. With such a powerful pair of wings, if it didn't have any special abilities, how could it be called a wind god pearl? Below, someone exclaimed, "Flash! Is that an afterimage or the main body?" Someone gulped and said, "Of course it's an afterimage." However, the afterimage was too realistic, as if it was real. Someone sighed and said, "What a fast speed! If I can also get a wind god pearl, that would be great." Someone laughed and scolded, "You? A wind god pearl? Just take a shower and sleep." Mu Jiaer's eyes glittered. She jumped over and greeted Han Fei. "Han Fei, here. Come here. Let me see your wings." Han Fei landed on the surface of the sea and looked at Jiuyin Ling. Then he looked at Mu Jia. "Well, your soul attraction pill was used as bait by me. But don't panic. What do you want? I'll make it up to you later." Han Fei didn't know the function of the soul attraction pill, but it couldn't be ordinary since it could attract a wind sky wing soul king. Although he often robbed other people, this time, he was borrowing it. Now that he had used the soul attraction pill, he was naturally embarrassed. Mu Jier was briefly stunned. Then, she jumped over unconcernedly. It's fine. Can I touch your wings?" Han Fei was about to speak, when he saw a figure much faster than Mu Jier and appeared next to Han Fei with a swoosh. "No!" Jiuyin Ling answered for Han Fei. Moreover, there was still a slight smile on his face, and his face was a little flushed and nervous. Han Fei. Mu Jia. Everyone. Han Fei thought to himself, the wings are my wings, aren't they? Jiuyin Ling glanced at Han Fei. I'm jealous. Han Fei. Everyone. Dumbfounded, Han Fei said in a hurry, wait, Jiu. Little Jiu, why are you jealous? Jiuyin Ling pursed her lips and didn't say anything. It was quite weird in Han Fei's eyes. Then, it was even weirder in other people's eyes. She looked at Jiuyin Ling and then at Han Fei. Dumbfounded too, Mu Jia pouted and said, I'll just touch it. Jiuyin Ling looked at Han Fei and Han Fei said gloomily, go ahead. This time, Jiuyin Ling didn't object. It was useless to object anyway. With a thought from Han Fei, the wings grew to a wingspan of about 6 meters. Mu Jia touched them curiously and exclaimed, it's cold. It's so cold. It's so strange. It seems that some parts don't exist at all. I can only touch the visible parts when I flash out. Guan Qinyan also reached out and touched it. It's really amazing. Then, Chao Qiu shouted, I want it too. I don't like my wings now. Can I still change them? A law enforcer smiled and said, what do you think this is? Do you think we can change them just because you say so? Jiuyin Ling suddenly said, then I'll touch them too. Han Fei's eyelids twitched, but he didn't refuse in the end. However, he immediately said, there are other people I don't know. Don't touch them. There's nothing to see. Go away, go away. Guan Qinyan shouted in a low voice, Mu Jia, come back. Mu Jia reluctantly let go of her hand and snorted. I don't want my wings either. Han Fei, does your wings have a name? Han Fei smiled faintly. Phantom glass wings. Chao Qiu was still pulling Han Fei's wings, but Han Fei pushed him away. Enough. If you're done, get out of here. Chao Qiu said carelessly, Han Fei, let me tell you, this needs to be researched. Before Chao Qiu finished speaking, he saw that Jiuyin Ling was pursing her lips and looking at him. She was not threatening and her eyes were even watery. Chao Qiu didn't know what to say. After a long daze, Chao Qiu retracted his hand in embarrassment. Okay. I'll go. Han Fei, did you go to the Empyrean waterfall too? Then I'll go to see you tomorrow. Let me tell you, my research has made extraordinary achievements. Wait for me. Han Fei rolled his eyes and said, I may not go back to the Empyrean waterfall in the next few days. You can go back now. Han Fei glanced at those who hadn't left, immediately rose into the sky, and flew away. On the fishing boat 1,000 kilometers away, Han Fei had already put away the phantom glass wings. They were beautiful, but it was meaningless to show them off all the time. After all, the wings were only useful for flying and fighting, and there was no need to show them all the time, right? But now Han Fei was very depressed. Because there was another person on his fishing boat. Han Fei said with a bitter smile, Xiaojiu, why? Why did you come to the Wind Sky Canyon? Jiuyin Ling smiled. After I consolidated my cultivation, I learned that you came to the Wind Sky Canyon, so I came here. Han Fei was briefly stunned. I'm here. Why did you come? Jiuyin Ling blushed and said, to protect you. Han Fei's lips twitched. The atmosphere was not right, so he quickly waved his hand and said, No, I'm a man. Why do I need protection? Go back. I'll take a look around. However, Jiuyin Ling didn't move. She still pursed her lips and stood on Han Fei's boat. Han Fei was lost for words. What's wrong with her? Han Fei said timidly, Why don't you go back first? I want to take a look at the Sea of Pearls. Jiuyin Ling said, You've just become a hidden fisher, and your comprehensive strength will increase greatly. You need to adapt to it, and after you completely adapt to it, your overall strength will once again increase by a small margin. So, it's better for you to consolidate at the Empyrean waterfall. Han Fei was briefly stunned. Really? Jiuyin Ling nodded hard. Yes. Thinking of Jiuyin Ling, Han Fei knew that she had to go back with him, Immediately he said, "It's fine. I can consolidate my strength on the sea. I can also consolidate my strength by fighting a half-mermaid in the sea demon realm." Juin Ling pursed her lips and said, "Then I'll go with you." Han Fei staggered. That's not necessary. It's convenient for me to be alone. Besides, who dares to come when you're a law enforcer?" Juin Ling still didn't leave. "I'll stay and date you." "Pooh!" Han Fei sat on his deck and looked at Juin Ling, dumbfounded. Han Fei grumbled and got to his feet. "Wait, what date? We're just neighbors. Besides, let me tell you, I have a girlfriend." Juin Ling still pursed her lips. "I know. She's gone. She won't be back for a long, long time." Cough, cough. Han Fei was lost for words. It was definitely Wang Dashui. How about White Dew? How could he tell this to an outsider? Han Fei said gloomily, "No, we're not suitable. You don't like me?" Han Fei opened his mouth. "What's wrong with her?" Juin Ling suddenly took a deep breath and said, "You helped me straighten out the comfort technique. So, if you don't dislike me, you'll be my boyfriend in the future." "Pooh!" Han Fei said with a crying face. "What if I dislike you?" Juin Ling's smile immediately dropped and her tears fell. "Hey, hey, hey! Don't cry, don't cry. Oh no. Oh my God!" Han Fei scolded, "Don't cry. Stop it." Juin Ling was startled by Han Fei. She quickly wiped her tears and hummed in a low voice. Seeing that her tears were still rolling in her eyes, Han Fei was upset. "It's all Granny Yin's fault. If I had known this, I wouldn't have visited her." Han Fei turned around and waved his hand. "Don't make me criticize you. Forget it. I'll go back to the Empyrean waterfall. I'll go back." First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 849. Han Fei flew all the way back to the Empyrean waterfall. He was very melancholic at the moment. One could even say that he was extremely melancholic. Alas! Han Fei sat at the dinner table in Wang Dashui's house, with a bowl of rice in front of him. Anyone who saw it would be sad. He finally managed to scare Juin Ling away. He said that Wang Dashui's people ate their meals one by one, which scared Juin Ling away. Alas! At the dinner table, Wang Dashui, Bai Lu, and Qing Chen all looked at Han Fei in a daze. Wang Dashui scratched his head and said, "Little junior brother, you've sighed more than 100 times. What's wrong?" Bai Lu also said nervously, "Yes. What's wrong with you? Didn't you get the Wind God Pearl and the Phantom Glass Wings? Why are you sighing?" Qing Chen nodded quickly. "I'm full of jealousy now." "Yes, jealousy." Han Fei leisurely put his hand on the table. "It's hard. Sister-in-law, Juin Ling really likes me this time. I'm so worried." Instantly, Bai Lu rolled her eyes. "What are you worried about? She's such a good girl." Qing Chen also nodded. "Brother Han, I think you don't know how lucky you are. I heard that the technique that little Jiu cultivates is to be at ease, not to follow her heart. If you want to be at ease, you have to conform to your deepest and most fundamental thoughts. But with her temperament, she was especially pliable and obedient. Although she's a law enforcer now, she won't dare to go west if you tell her to go east." Smack. Han Fei slapped the table. "Which B** starred created this technique. If I find out, I'll definitely kill him." Wang Dashui said unhurriedly, "It seems to be a technique from the ancient times. I heard that it may have been created by a king-level expert." Cough, cough. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Does this king-level expert have nothing better to do? Can't he create a good technique or two? This. What kind of technique is this? It makes me feel very uncomfortable. Qing Chen patted Han Fei's shoulder and said, "It's normal to feel uncomfortable. Little Jiu must be feeling uneasy right now, because you rejected her repeatedly, so she must be feeling uneasy. But think about it, if you don't refuse, you might be able to create an explorer within 2 years. Do you understand? An explorer. In the future, no one will dare to provoke you. Bai Lu nodded. Well, Qing Chen is right. Maybe it's possible. Moreover, this matter, the more junior brother is against it, the more uncomfortable little Nine will be. At that time, once she is at ease, her strength may instantly soar. Han Fei opened his mouth. Why can't I talk to them? Han Fei was lost for words. I have a girlfriend. Aren't you forcing me to have an affair? If Xia Xiaochan finds out, she will definitely kill me. No, definitely not. Looking at the bowl of white rice in front of him, Han Fei blinked. Sister-in-law, I'm not in a good mood. I'm going to find someone to fight. But Bai Lu slapped the table and shouted, Come back and finish the food for me. In an instant, Wang Dashuai and Qing Chen buried their heads in eating, which made Han Fei shiver, and he sat down again. God knew how Han Fei swallowed this bowl of rice. In any case, it was stuffed into his mouth. He swore that he would never come to Wang Dashuai's house to eat again. She was even scarier than Zhou Ling. After the meal, Han Fei was about to go home. Before he walked far, he saw Zhou Ling standing at the gate of his yard. Han Fei turned around and walked into Yi Qingfeng's house. Alas! Han Fei heaved a long sigh. Senior Yi, is there poison? I want to take a sip. Yi Qingfeng was trimming a poisonous grass. He looked up at Han Fei. Why are you sighing? In the corner there is a fire horn bug. Tap its head twice and let it drip 2 drops of poison into the tea. After a while, Han Fei held the teacup and sighed. Senior Yi, is there any way to make little Nine give up? Bam! Han Fei flew out of the yard and rolled twice on the ground. He got up with a grunt, knocked left and right, whistled, and braced himself to walk back. When passing by Granny Yin's house, Han Fei quickly slipped over. In the yard, Granny Yin shouted, Why are you running? Come in. Ha! Han Fei leaned against the door and said, Senior, are you looking for me? Granny Yin raised her chin. Sit. Han Fei obediently sat on the stool and sighed subconsciously. Granny Yin couldn't help but put down a piece of fish skin in her hand and sneered. Don't be so greedy. Do you know? Little Nine can only cultivate one person in his life. Once he makes up his mind, he won't look back. Besides, little Nine is also very good. Han Fei frowned and said, But the problem is that I have a girlfriend. Don't ask me why she is not here now. Although I am not a good person, I am very serious about love. I can't be a two-timer. Granny Yin glanced at Han Fei. Is Xia Xiaochan so good? Han Fei thought for a moment and slightly shook his head. Not so good, but I like her. Granny Yin snorted and said, In fact, there are 2 ways, but they are extremely difficult. Han Fei's eyes suddenly lit up and he was overjoyed. What ways? Who do you think I am? Nothing in the world is difficult for those who set their minds on it. Besides, there are 2 ways. How great! Granny Yin snorted. Don't be too happy. Let me tell you. Han Fei nodded like a chick pecking rice. Go ahead. Granny Yin looked up at the sky and sighed. Legend has it that in ancient times there was an unparalleled book. Even in the 1,000-star city, it is only a legend. That book is called the Big Dream Heavenly Book, which teaches people how to dream and enter reincarnation. If you have this book, you may be able to enter little Nine's dream and fulfill her wish. Huh! Han Fei rubbed his eyebrows. Are you kidding me? Where am I going to find such a legendary cultivation technique? Han Fei heaved a long sigh. What's the other one? Granny Yin said lightly. There is another one, which is also a strange technique in ancient legends. It is called the Myriad Things 3. It is said that it can separate one person into 3. In this way, you will have 2 extra incarnations. Besides, you can choose not to communicate with your incarnations. Han Fei was speechless. Aren't you making things difficult for me? Where can I find this Myriad Things 3? Besides, even if I find it, I won't be able to find it. Even if I find it, my incarnations will still be me, won't they? Han Fei thought to himself, this old lady is too unreliable. She doesn't care about me at all. Granny Yin said leisurely, that's why it is extremely difficult. Who knew that you would be so single-minded? No matter in the village, there are many people who marry multiple wives. Isn't it good for you to have one more? Han Fei stood up. Fine. You can continue to bask in the sun. I think I'd better solve it myself. Wait a minute. Han Fei looked back, only to see Granny Yin looking at the stool. Helplessly, Han Fei sat down again. Granny Yin said, it's not that there isn't a third way, but it's also extremely difficult. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Is it another ancient legend? Granny Yin glared at Han Fei grumpily. This method is indeed difficult, but it has nothing to do with ancient legends. Han Fei perked up. What is it? Granny Yin said leisurely, expand the sea and become a king. Han Fei was stunned. What do you mean? Granny Yin said with a faint smile, the realm above the explorer is the venerable. I think you must have heard of it. What about the realm above the venerable? It's the sea expansion realm, which is the legendary king realm. However, there is none in the Thousand-Star City. Han Fei asked in surprise, above the venerable is the king realm? Granny Yin nodded. Yes, but the sea expansion realm is too difficult. An old lady like me can't do it. But little Jiao has a chance. You've seen her talent. It's not impossible for her to succeed. Anyway, your little girlfriend is not here. If you can help little Jiao expand the sea, the freedom technique won't be able to lock her anymore. You can break up with her then. Han Fei's heart sank. He got up and said, got it. I'll think about it. Granny Yin narrowed her eyes slightly. Okay. Go. Out of the yard, Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Granny Yin actually wanted to tell him the third way, right? She said she could help little Jiao expand the sea, but she didn't say he could. That was, in her opinion, Jiao Ling had the highest chance of becoming a king. However, Granny Yin also said that no one in the Thousand-Star City could expand the sea, which meant that there was no king. So, was it a coincidence that Jiao Ling practiced the freedom technique? Why was it him? Did they want him to help little Jiao expand the sea? Or did they simply want a king? An expert who could stand at the top of the Thousand-Star City? At this moment, Han Fei's mind raced. Looking at Jiao Ling in the distance, Han Fei quickly walked over. After a moment, standing in front of Jiao Ling, Han Fei said casually, follow me. Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 850. Han Fei felt very uncomfortable seeing Jiao Ling's obedient behavior. Even if you're in a relationship, you shouldn't do it like this. What kind of freedom-breaking technique is that? It's purely making people uncomfortable. It's clearly making people uncomfortable. Han Fei even suspected that Jiao Ling was forced to cultivate the freedom-breaking technique. At home, Han Fei said solemnly, Xiaojiao, is there something wrong with your freedom-breaking technique? Jiao Ling blinked her eyes. No. The freedom-breaking technique, also known as the freedom and nature technique, is a magical technique inherited from bloodline. Someone in my family seemed to have obtained it more than 300 years ago. However, that ancestor died when he was a hidden fisher and couldn't reach higher levels. Han Fei pondered for a while and suddenly smiled. Actually, I'm from a village. I can't compare to the big families in the Thousand-Star City. I don't care. Han Fei's face stiffened for a moment, then he smiled. Then you have to tell me your background and identity, right? Jiao Ling nodded quickly. Actually, our family is also a declining family in the Thousand-Star City. Because of the thinness of our bloodline, the current population of the family is less than 100. After a moment, Han Fei was enlightened. This girl had already explained everything very clearly. Apart from her younger brother, she was the only one in her generation. Her younger brother was only 5 years old this year and hadn't inherited the freedom-breaking technique. That was because it depended on luck as well. Therefore, her family could only pin their hopes on her. Therefore, this girl had been cultivating wholeheartedly since she was a child. It was foreseeable that once Joeen Ling broke through to the explorer realm, their family would definitely rise. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh slightly. He had never had any concept of family. At this moment, after listening to Joeen Ling for a long time, he suddenly said, "Can you show me your freedom and nature technique?" Han Fei pondered. If it didn't work, he could try deducing the freedom and nature technique for her for free. What if she didn't want to look for trouble? Briefly stunned, Joeen Ling nodded. A moment later, she took out a jade slip and handed it to Han Fei. At the same time, Joeen Ling also said, "However, the comfort and nature technique can only be cultivated with a special bloodline." Han Fei waved his hand and said, "It doesn't matter. I don't practice it. Let me help you see if there are any problems with this cultivation method." Han Fei wasn't surprised that Joeen Ling gave him the comfort and nature technique without hesitation. In any case, others couldn't cultivate it. In any case, Joeen Ling wanted to date him, so it was only natural for her to give it to him. Han Fei took the jade slip and scanned it. Comfort and nature technique, heaven-level divine quality, introduction. In ancient times, a powerhouse intercepted the 9 notes of the heavenly Tao and fused it with his bloodline and soul to derive a peculiar technique that secretly conforms to the Tao of heaven and man. The cultivation of this method was to find freedom in the world, and it was also known as the human Tao. In order to cultivate this technique, one had to obtain the bloodline inheritance of this expert. One had to have no distractions in the heart, one had to feel the various forms of life, and one had to enter the world. Once he broke through, his strength would increase rapidly. Deduction cost: 0/100 000 deduction result. Unknown note: the heavenly Tao is not limited to the 9 sounds. This technique must be incomplete. As expected, Han Fei secretly praised himself for his wit. There was indeed something wrong with this technique. Although it was a heaven-level divine quality technique, it had a big problem when it was first created. The demon purification pot said that the heavenly Tao was more than 9 note. Han Fei didn't think so. Han Fei immediately grinned. As long as he could find the problem, there would be a way to solve it. It wasn't as complicated as Granny Een made it out to be. What ancient book? He could look for it himself in the sky. Then what if one person was divided into 3? What if they met each other? Were they to form a family? Seeing Han Fei's smile, Joeen Ling couldn't help but ask curiously, "Do you understand?" "I just find it funny. Xiao Jiao, how many notes do you think the heavenly Tao has?" Joeen Ling said solemnly, 9. Han Fei grinned and looked up at Joeen Ling. "Do you trust me?" Joeen Ling nodded solemnly. Han Fei smiled casually. "That's good. Get me 100,000 caddies of spiritual spring. Don't ask me why." Joeen Ling was stunned for a moment. Then, she nervously pinched the corner of her clothes and suddenly blushed. My family is poor." Han Fei's smile suddenly froze. "Isn't your family from the 1,000-star city? No matter how poor your family is, can't you get 100,000 caddies of spiritual spring?" Joeen Ling lowered her head and said nervously, "In order to cultivate for me, my family has given me all the resources. Alas." Han Fei heaved a long sigh. Although Joeen Ling's realm was high, she was still like a girl who didn't know anything about the world. Did he have to give her 100 million points of spiritual energy? That was impossible. Although he still had a little more than 100 million points of spiritual energy, he couldn't deduce the comfort and nature technique. What should he do after the deduction? Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Xiao Jiao, let me tell you this, your cultivation technique is incomplete." Joeen Ling suddenly raised her head. "No, that's impossible." Han Fei sneered. "There are more than 9 notes in the heavenly Tao. There are 3,000 great Taos, 10,000 heavenly sounds, and billions of stars. How can there only be 9 notes? Jiuyin Ling was at a loss for a moment. But, according to the technique, Han Fei stood up and said leisurely, a technique is a technique. Maybe your ancestor made a mistake when he created this technique. But don't panic. Isn't there a way to enter the human world in your technique? Have you seen the human world? Have you seen the billions of people here? Have you been to villages and towns, farmed, bought vegetables, and cooked? Have you really become acquainted with ordinary people? Jiuyin Ling was stunned for a while, and then slightly shook her head. Han Fei chuckled. See, that's right. Do you think fighting sea demons on the Scattered Stars Island is entering the human world? You have to try to start as an ordinary person and experience the life of ordinary people. That's entering the human world. You haven't even entered the human world yet. What's the use of dating? Jiuyin Ling slightly frowned and was at a loss. Then, are you coming with me? Cough, cough, cough. Han Fei almost stumbled. It didn't make sense to talk to this girl. Although Jiuyin Ling looked dignified when she showed the demeanor of an expert, she was actually a naive girl. This was a serious problem. Han Fei was very uncomfortable and tried to find something to talk about. You have your freedom, and I have mine. Well, if you want to be my girlfriend and let me take you to experience the human world, wait for me to become a law enforcer first. Before Jiuyin Ling said anything, Han Fei quickly said, my path is not simpler than yours. I bet that if you were in the same realm as me, you would be no match for me. Jiuyin Ling thought for a moment, nodded slightly, and then said weakly, I can help you. Han Fei put on a smile. No, I have to walk my own path. It has nothing to do with others. Even when Xia Xiaochan was here, she never interfered with my path. This is the basic etiquette of a girlfriend. Jiuyin Ling was silent for a long time. Okay. Han Fei secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He finally fooled her. Let's fool her first and then. Law enforcer? With my advancement speed, it's still too early for me to become a law enforcer. Even if I become a law enforcer, so what? Jiuyin Ling was only at the early stage of law enforcer. She could at least continue to cultivate, and he would still have time in the future. When he became a law enforcer in the future, he might have already obtained 100 million points of spiritual energy. If you really can't, I'll take you to be an ordinary person, okay? After being an ordinary person, you might be able to advance, and maybe even become a peak-level law enforcer. Han Fei felt that he was almost convinced by himself. So, he struck while the iron was hot. Well, shall I arrange a task for you? Jiuyin Ling. Han Fei's face was beaming with a bright smile. In the future, you should go shopping more often. Shopping? Han Fei nodded seriously. Yes, just shopping. To make some friends and observe what normal people usually do. You're right. I've just become a hidden fisher and need to stabilize myself. I'll go find Nameless and the others to fight. Let's work hard together. Yes, work hard together. Gradually, a smile appeared on Jiuyin Ling's face. Together. Work hard. Us? Han Fei nodded like a chicken pecking rice. Yes, yes, yes. Falling in love is not something that can be done easily. It needs a buffer of time. Well, yes, a buffer. Only when the opportunity comes and it feels right, let nature take its course. Do you understand? Jiuyin Ling shook her head blankly. Smack. Han Fei suddenly slapped his thigh. You don't understand? That's right. This is a kind of entering the human world. You have to go through this process. How can you fall in love just because you want to? What do you want to fall in love with? How about this, go back and think about it. There's no hurry. As the saying goes, more haste, less speed, and less desire. It wasn't easy for him to fool Jiuyin Ling away. Han Fei sat on a chair. Phew. That scared me. Well, let's stall for 2 years first. Han Fei thought, if these people force me again, I'll have to find a way to run away and become a sea demon. Temporarily solving this matter, Han Fei suddenly got up and walked out of the courtyard. Since he was back, he might as well go fight. As for the Sea of Pearls? He would leave it for a couple of days until he was fully familiar with his current physique and combat power. The third chapter. Asking for votes. Note, this book doesn't have a harem. Okay. Today is the third chapter. I'm planning something. No, I'll see it this month. Oh, end of this chapter. Chapter 851. Han Fei walked all the way to the periphery of the Empyrean waterfall. When he passed by Yui's house, he found that the girl was humming and pruning the flowers. When she saw Han Fei, Yui smiled brilliantly and greeted him. How did it go? Did you compromise? Han Fei was speechless. Compromise? What compromise? Hey. By the way, do you know who is the best stick wielder in the Empyrean waterfall? Yui smiled faintly. Of course it's old Du. Well, it's Yu Shire's house, the one behind it. Are you going to fight him? Han Fei smiled. That's right. I just made a breakthrough. My hands are itchy. Yui suddenly said, I heard that your phantom glass wings are very beautiful? The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. I'm not a big yellow fish. There's nothing beautiful about them. Hey. After chatting with Yui for a while, Han Fei went straight to Wu Ming, who was still sitting on the big green rock. Seeing Han Fei coming over, Wu Ming immediately opened his eyes and glanced at Han Fei casually. Congratulations. Han Fei smiled faintly and said, Are you interested in another battle? Wu Ming's eyes immediately lit up. Of course. Ning Jingyao in the distance suddenly shouted, Hey, hey, hey! Han Fei, you fought Do Wu Ming once. Isn't it our turn? Han Fei turned his head and looked around. Don't panic. Let's fight one by one. Hiss. Immediately, many people secretly took a deep breath. Judging from Han Fei's tone, was he going to fight them one by one? Immediately, someone said delightedly, I like his personality. That's how it should be. How can I stay at home every day without fighting? I like fighting and hot-blooded. Immediately, some people went out and leaned against the wall. Some people sat on the roof. Some people squatted on the roadside and watched, like loafers in the countryside. And some people scanned over with their perception. Han Fei's idea was that now that he had become a hidden fisher, he had to slowly summarize the most suitable combat skill for himself. In other words, Han Fei was going to comprehend every combat skill that he had practiced. For Han Fei, even if a combat skill only had one move, as long as he completely grasped it, it would be considered a success. Han Fei stepped into the 300-meter sword domain without hesitation. Wu Ming immediately put his hands on the sword. In that instant, the sky was filled with sword shadows flying towards him. A kitchen knife suddenly appeared in Han Fei's hand. Ding ding dang dang. In an instant, Han Fei, who was in the sword domain, changed his figure and attacked at an extremely fast speed. He used the kitchen knife to cut the sword light. At this moment, his terrifying movement technique was displayed to the fullest. Han Fei was twisting his body in a non-human way. But no matter how fast Han Fei was, how could he resist the dense and infinite sword lights? Dang dang dang. Starting from the 10th second, when Han Fei was 100 meters deep, more than 10 streaks of sword chi swept at him almost every second. However, when the first sword chi fell on Han Fei, Wu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly and he murmured, What a strong physique. Han Fei was still meticulously shredding the sword chi and moving forward step by step. When he was only 100 meters away from Wu Ming, Han Fei suddenly burst out dozens of afterimages. His figure changed so quickly that it was dazzling to the point of blurring. At this moment, many people who were watching the show with smiles on their faces stopped smiling. Ning Jingyao became serious and his eyes were deep. He is not sparring. He is honing his movement technique. Also, he wants to find out his limit through Wu Ming. Li Luoluo also came over and sat on the roof of Ning Jingyao's house. She curled her lips and said, "Is he using us as whetstones?" Someone smiled faintly. "It's not our turn yet. But I think he has this plan. But it's not bad for Wuming. If his 300-meter sword domain really meets someone like Han Fei, who has thick skin and amazing movement technique." Someone shook his head. "If he does meet him, Wuming will attack immediately. He won't waste so much time. Last time, he ate at Han Fei's house and now karma has come. Wuming is embarrassed. He immediately attacked. However, this is good. I can see Han Fei's potential." Han Fei's movement technique was changing. The 64-dimensional fish dragon dance began to derive all the footwork combat skills he had learned. Although he still couldn't completely avoid and resist these sword chi shadows, he was not in a hurry. He knew that Wuming was not in a hurry either, because up until now it was the sword domain itself that was attacking. 64? Han Fei naturally knew that the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance could simulate all kinds of movement technique. But Han Fei had been neglecting one problem, which was the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance itself. If all the 64 changes were performed Puchi, Han Fei's afterimages appeared in the 300-meter sword domain one after another and were shattered by the sword chi. However, there were more and more afterimages, to the extent that the sword chi couldn't even attack them at the same time. "Huh!" someone said in surprise. "Han Fei's afterimages are also avoiding the sword chi." Someone was confused. "That's not right. Those afterimages can be distinguished at a glance. Is it necessary to avoid the sword chi?" Suddenly, someone said, "Wait, Han Fei is trying to switch between the afterimages." Yui murmured. He walked forward another 50 meters. Every breath, there would only be a dozen or so sword chi that landed on his body. It has become less. After about 5 minutes, Wuming suddenly said, "My spiritual energy is running out. Take a sword strike from me." With that, Wuming drew his sword, and a snow-silver cold light suddenly flashed, splitting the sky like lightning. When he took this sword strike, Han Fei retreated quickly, and the blood-drinking knife in his hand, like a flying butterfly, cut 23 times on the sword light in a row. In the end, the corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. He finally used the draw technique and smashed Wuming's sword strike with one slash. Wuming was slightly surprised. "You found the flaw of my sword strike?" Han Fei put away the blood-drinking knife, pointed his finger, and a column of spiritual energy drilled into Wuming's body. "Almost. Your sword strike is strong, but it's too fast." Wuming frowned. "Speed is invincible, right?" Han Fei thought for a moment and explained, "Yes and no. For those who are slower than you, you'll definitely win. For those who are faster than you, because your sword is too fast, they won't be able to follow up. As long as the outer layer of sword light is broken, the threat of this sword strike will be small." Wuming slightly nodded. "Not bad. You can come again later." Han Fei twisted his head, and his clothes were already in tatters. He raised his head and looked at Ning Jingyao. "Do you want to play with knives?" Ning Jingyao grinned and said, "Sure." Li Luoluo exclaimed and said, "Ning Jingyao, go up to the sky and fight. Don't fight here." Someone echoed, "Yes, yes, go up to the sky. Don't come down." Han Fei was confused. Someone said, "Ning Jingyao is quite destructive. On the ground, it would take him half a day to repair a road." Han Fei narrowed his eyes. "Is he really that strong?" Ning Jingyao chuckled too. "You're exaggerating. I'm very steady." "I'm not that exaggerating. Steady my A*S. Just go up." Ning Jingyao didn't explain. With a splash, he spread his wings, and the white feathers soared into the sky. He didn't stop until he was 500 meters in the air. "Hoop!" Han Fei grinned and unfolded the phantom glass wings. With a gentle flap of the dazzling glass wings, he soared into the sky. Someone asked in surprise, "Is this the phantom glass wings?" Yui smiled casually. "Beautiful, even more beautiful than my sky blue flower." Lying on the roof, Li Luoluo looked at the sky and said, "It is beautiful. However, if Han Fei is training himself, he probably won't use the ability of the phantom glass wings. What a pity." Holding a bowl, Yu Shire looked up at the sky enviously. In the sky, Ning Jingyao said with a smile, "The knife technique I practice is also called the star demonic knife. You can actually come to me at night. However, I'm not weak during the day." Han Fei thought for a moment. "I have the draw technique, and 10,000 knives in one." Then, Han Fei grabbed at the Empyrean waterfall. On the Empyrean waterfall side, steam was rising and clouds were rising. So, there was no shortage of water. Han Fei, who had lost his knife, could use water, so it was the same. He planned to give up the million knife art completely. That thing really consumed too much of his weapon. To really cultivate 10,000 knives? That was unrealistic. Even if he had 10,000 knives, once he made a breakthrough, it would be a serious problem to replace those knives. Therefore, it was not necessarily a bad thing to give up decisively. He grabbed the clouds and condensed the water knives, just to cover up the infinity water. In a sense, the knives that Han Fei transformed with the infinity water should be stronger than ordinary ultra-quality spiritual weapons, and should have reached the level of an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed spirit. It could be seen that in the future, the infinity water was very likely, no. It was definitely possible to burst out the power of a semi-divine weapon or even a divine weapon. Ning Jingyao didn't care. No matter who the opponent was, he just needed to break them with one knife. If one knife didn't work, then two. If two didn't work, then three. Hold the sun and the moon and pick the stars. Ning Jingyao's aura suddenly changed, and an illusory long knife seemed to condense beside him. He clamped the long knife with both hands and raised it in an instant. The wind blew around and the light bloomed. Weird and terrifying. The 100-meter-long knife shadow, illusory, slashed directly at Han Fei. Shoot! Is this guy so crazy? Han Fei was also stunned. It was the first time he had seen someone fight with a 100-meter-long knife attack. Besides, that knife was actually not weaker than Wu Ming's sword attack just now. Domineering, weird, terrifying, different from swordsmen, people who used knives were usually more violent and tough. Just like this knife, it directly slashed down, shaking everyone's mind. Han Fei immediately gave up the 10,000 knives in one. When the blood-drinking knife was drawn, all his essence, qi, and spirit were integrated into the knife. Han Fei waved the knife horizontally, and a 10-meter-long knife light cut up horizontally. Clang the roar, under this waterfall, produced bursts of echoes. Each sound carried a touch of air wave. Above the sky, halos flashed. The Empyrean waterfall, the waterfall curve. Above the Empyrean waterfall, in the surging waves, Qing Chen was looking at the sky in astonishment, watching the collision that was as bright as the sun, and murmured, "Wow, it's really fierce." First, asking for votes, end of this chapter.